Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya headquarters. These are our top stories. Macron calls Putin an aggressor as he corrects President Trump's statement on Europe's financial aid to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer refers to Putin as a menace as he announces an increase to UK defence spending. It comes as the US sides with Russia at the UN, opposing a resolution that condemned Moscow's actions over the three-year conflict with Ukraine. And the Pope spends another night in hospital as thousands of well-wishers gather together in Rome. To our top story, and Emmanuel Macron has said a peace deal with Russia must not mean a surrender of Ukraine, as he told the world's press Europe should do more to strengthen defence in the region. Yesterday, the French president became the first European leader to visit President Trump at the White House in his second administration. During the joint press conference where the Russia-Ukraine war was discussed, Macron politely corrected Trump when he claimed Europe had loaned money to Ukraine. Here's a reminder of what he said.
Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear, we have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day, in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day, and Russia would have paid for that.
If you believe that, it's okay with me.
Mr. President,
but they get their money back, we don't, and now we do. But you know, that's only fair.
Let's catch up with our correspondent in Paris, Ross Cullen. Ross, hello to you. So both presidents go back a really long way to Trump's very first administration. There's not a lot of people who would correct him like that. How has it gone down both in Paris and Washington? And remind us of their relationship.
Yeah, good evening, Leigh Ann. You're right. There certainly was a lot of alpha male power play in the meeting at the White House. Some media commentators even calling it the return of the bromance. The two men having one-on-one talks and then holding conversations with the press. And what you were just playing there was the pre-lunch chat with members of the media where President Macron interrupted and corrected the US president. So we don't often see that, but obviously Emmanuel Macron felt comfortable enough and he wanted to call out the US president for the misrepresentation of the composition of European aid packages to Ukraine. They met first in Donald Trump's first term, also Emmanuel Macron's first term, when the French president invited Mr. Trump here to France to take part in the French National Day, Bastille Day, and certainly, undoubtedly, Donald Trump was overawed by the display of French military hardware and patriotic pageantry. And also Donald Trump was one of the guests of honour in December back here in the French capital for the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral, and the US president mentioned that very fact during that news conference, saying it was an amazing renovation project of a beautiful building. We all feared the worst when the fire began, and he actually said, Donald Trump, he felt Emmanuel Macron hadn't got enough credit for steering through that 5-year renovation project. But yeah, we could see a lot of that power play, the vigorous handshakes, lots of backslapping, touching each other on the elbow, the knee, calling each other by their first names, dear Donald and dear Emmanuel. So it certainly was very theatrical to watch.
Yes, indeed it was. And as you mentioned, those long handshakes. President Macron, however, made his thoughts on Putin very clear. He called him the aggressor in the conflict and said Putin had violated the peace. That's strong words in front of Trump, who's been accused of siding with Russia. Has there been any backlash to this, or do you think Trump's kind of listened?
Yeah, no doubt about Emmanuel Macron's position, which is that Ukraine was invaded by Russia. We saw the tanks rolling over the Ukrainian border into Ukraine. That was the position of the United States until Donald Trump came back into the White House and has changed the narrative, suggesting that Ukraine began the war. Now, this is something that is forcing Europeans to rapidly shift their position as well, to try to recalibrate their responses in terms of the position taken by Washington. But Emmanuel Macron, during that news conference with Donald Trump, did make it very clear that he felt that Russia was the aggressor. Russia started this war. It could end the war today if it felt it could do so. Also that Russia had violated those previous peace agreements, the so-called Minsk agreements that were signed, and then those collapsed. And we have then seen that lead up during 2014 to 2021, that build up before the full-scale invasion by Russia in 2022. So we did see that very strong position by Emmanuel Macron being taken, especially importantly, Anne, if we see it in the context of the votes in the United Nations last night, where we saw the United States siding with Russia and China and not siding with its traditional allies, the United Kingdom and France, the 5 Security Council permanent members. That is very interesting to see if going forward the position of Washington is going to be more aligned with Beijing and Moscow than with London and Paris.
Ross, you talked about shifting stances earlier, and the UK Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, announced an increase in defence spending. Do you believe this is a direct result of Macron's meeting, or was he preparing to meet Trump himself?
Well, Leigh Ann, I think it's a direct result of what Keir Starmer himself has said that needs to happen. The British Prime Minister has agreed with Donald Trump on the point that Europeans need to pay more for European defence, that European nations need to increase their defence spending. And there is now a realisation in the British government that the time has come, indeed, to try to cut other departments' spending, to free up more cash to be spent on the Army, on the Navy, on the Air Force, on cyber intelligence, on cyber technology and cyber warfare as well. There is a realisation that there is a war going on the European continent, and there needs to be an increase in defence spending by European nations if they're able to match the commitments that they've made diplomatically, especially if we view that, Leigh Ann, in the context of the United Kingdom saying it will be willing to contribute forces inside Ukraine after any peace deal as part of a reassurance force, as a peacekeeping force. And if there is going to be the deployment of British troops, then that is going to have to require increased spending in the United Kingdom. We're going to get a debrief from Keir Starmer on Sunday after his trip to the White House, which is due to take place on Thursday. And we will also get a debrief from Emmanuel Macron tomorrow on Wednesday, when he speaks to EU leaders, summing up what happened behind closed doors during his trip to Washington.
Ross Cullen in Paris, thank you so much for joining me. Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines today. Volunteers attempting to help those impacted by the civil war in Sudan say the suspension of US humanitarian aid has forced almost 80% of emergency food kitchens to close. The conflict between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces has killed tens of thousands of people and forced millions from their homes since April 2023. The Trump administration stopped all US aid last month to determine whether it was serving US interests. The FBI have found the remains of a British man who went missing in Florida over 2 years ago. Alex Hodgson Doherty was on holiday in Jacksonville in September 2022 when he was reported missing by his mother after she was unable to contact him. His remains were on private land near Kingsland, Georgia. The FBI said no criminal charges are expected in the case. Israel is considering imposing new restrictions on Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque compound ahead of the holy month of Ramadan. It will stop Palestinian prisoners released as part of the hostage exchange deal struck during the ongoing ceasefire in Gaza from entering the Al-Aqsa compound. 3,000 police personnel will also be deployed at checkpoints leading to the mosque. And the Secret Service agent who leapt onto JFK's car during his assassination has died at the age of 93. Clint Hill went on to become a best-selling author and often shared his guilt over Kennedy's assassination. A statement from his publisher said that Hill died at home with his wife at his side. A cause of death was not given. Staying with the Russia-Ukraine war now, as the US sided with Russia at the United Nations in New York last night on the third anniversary of the conflict. The United States voted alongside Russia and other countries, including North Korea and Belarus, opposing a European draft resolution that condemned Moscow's actions and supported Ukraine's territorial rights. The US also voted for a resolution that called for an end to the war, but interestingly did not criticize Russia, highlighting the Trump administration's change of tact. I'm now joined by Ambassador Mikhail Ulyanov, Russia's permanent representative to international organizations in Russia. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, Ambassador. There's been a clear shift in the United States' stance on the conflict, which has gone on for over 3 years. When could we see it resolve? And will there ever be peace between Russia and Ukraine?
Well, actually, peace could have been achieved long ago. We never ever refused to conduct peace talks with Kiev. Peace negotiations started immediately after the beginning of special military operation, and during March of 2022, the two sides, Kiev and Moscow, almost reached a peace accord. The draft was based to a large extent to textual suggestions of the Ukrainian side, and Ukraine initialed this draft. Certain fine-tuning was required, but basically the two sides agreed on main points. Unfortunately, after that, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, intervened. He visited Kiev and prohibited Zelensky to sign a peace deal. He insisted on the need to continue war fighting, promised weapons, money, etc. The same with the United States. Recently, Victoria Nuland confessed that Ukrainians consulted with Washington on a draft peace deal, and Washington recommended not to sign it. Regarding Boris Johnson, relevant facts were revealed by the chief Ukrainian negotiator, Mr. Arahamia, who is very close to Zelensky. So a real chance to achieve peace 3 years ago was missed, and it was not the first case of this kind. Your colleague, a journalist, just a few minutes ago said that Russia violated the Minsk agreements. It's a lie. Actually, we engaged in relevant negotiations together with Angela Merkel, President Hollande in 2015, and an agreement was reached, and it was endorsed by the UN Security Council. But it was never implemented by Ukraine, and Western countries were very tolerable to this sabotage. 1 year ago, 1 year and a half, Angela Merkel confessed why it happened. And President Hollande confirmed that her assessment was accurate. For France and Germany, the Minsk agreements were not about peace. They were about buying time for Ukraine to get prepared for a large-scale war. Now, to a large extent due to the change in the US position, we are closer to the beginning of negotiations. We never ever refused to negotiate. The problem is that President Zelensky issued an order or decree prohibiting any peace talks with Russia. So the first step for him is to cancel his own decision. We are ready, and we are ready to negotiate with Ukraine. We are ready to negotiate with European states if necessary. The fact that only two sides, Russia and the United States, were present at the recent talks in Riyadh was very simple. We discussed ways and means to normalize bilateral relations, to normalize the functioning of diplomatic missions, to discuss some economic issues. Ukraine was just one topic on the agenda among many others. And of course, there was no place for Ukraine or European states to be present there. But as soon as negotiations on peace settlement start, Ukraine will be at the negotiating table. President Putin, Minister Lavrov confirmed it a number of times. And this is the difference between our position and the position of our Western opponents and Ukraine. You might remember that for 2 years, Western countries and Ukraine organized numerous meetings on the basis of so-called peace formula of Zelensky. Russia was never invited to such meetings. It was stupid. And we are not going to repeat the same mistake.
But Ambassador,
yeah.
Just excuse me for just interrupting you for a second. You said Russia wasn't invited to those talks, but much of Europe currently feels like you are the aggressor. Emmanuel Macron has said that Russia was the aggressor, and that on February the 24th, 2022, you launched the ground invasion on Ukraine. And this is why the likes of European allies rallied around Ukraine, like Boris Johnson, offering weapons and help to the country. Do you see where the Europeans stand on these negotiation talks?
Well, I don't agree with President Macron. He is higher than me. But in fact, Russia was not an aggressor. As one of my Arab colleagues said, you always need to look at the root causes of a conflict. And indeed, this conflict started long before February 24, 2022. It started in 2014, when, with the assistance of Western countries, a coup d'etat took place in Kiev. And immediately the new government in Ukraine started, in violation of the constitution, started to use Ukrainian army against civilians in Donbass. It lasted for 8 years. And there was no progress in implementing the peace agreements, which could preserve territorial integrity of Ukraine and bring about peace to the territory of Ukraine. It was not our fault.
But other people would argue that in 2024, Putin illegally annexed the Crimean Peninsula. That's how it was seen around the world.
Well, you can have your personal view on this subject, but for me, what is most important is the fact that 96% of Crimean population voted at a referendum to rejoin the Russian Federation. I remember that there were slogans at streets, back home to Russia, etc. And I believe no one would argue that it was the will of the local population. It was not annexation. It was a referendum, which was caused by the violation of human rights of Russian minority by the new Ukrainian authorities after the coup d'etat in 2014. People simply defended themselves, their families, their rights as human beings. It was not an aggression. And, you know, I can speak on this topic very long. Unfortunately, the format of this interview does not allow me to do that. But I could present a great number of facts. For 8 years, people in Donbass were killed by the Ukrainian army. More than 10,000 people 150 children in Donetsk. The youngest of them was 2 months old. It could not last forever. And since there was continued shelling of civilians on the one hand and sabotage in what regards implementation of the peace Minsk agreement, there was the only way ahead for us to intervene militarily. But it was not an unprovoked, so-called unprovoked invasion. It was provoked for a long time.
Ambassador, I just want to ask you about Dmitry Peskov. He said Russia has a lot of rare earth metals that the US needs, responding to a similar ongoing deal between Zelensky and Trump. Does Russia actually have these to trade, or is this basically power play?
Well, this topic doesn't fall within my competence, and it is of no interest for me as a diplomat. You heard what Peskov said, you heard what President Putin said. I fully trust the assessment, and yes, President Putin offered a possibility of economic cooperation between Russia and the United States in what regards rare metals. Why not, if it mutually beneficial. But for me, the main point is that we need to conduct peace negotiations. We don't need a ceasefire, because we know from the previous experience that when we were naive and admitted that cessation of activities could bring lasting peace, our partners behaved in a wrong manner. So Minister Lavrov yesterday said that combat operations will continue until the relevant durable results in the peace process are achieved.
Ambassador Mihail Olyan of Russia's
we need lasting peace.
Permanent representative to the international organizations in Russia. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's get into this further with Norman T. Rule, former senior US intelligence officer from Washington. Norman, good evening to you. Thank you for joining me. We asked our last guest about the United States' change of position on the war. What's the reason for the shift, and who does it look to serve by changing sides?
Good evening. Well, you received a long-winded dose of Russian propaganda, and that gives you a sense of what the world is enduring and what the Ukrainian people endure. The United States government does recognize certain historical realities. Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014. Russia invaded Ukraine again in this most recent war. Russia is occupying territory, and the 2022 agreement that Ambassador Ulyanov lied about requires not only that Ukraine give up that territory, adopt Russian as an official language, reduce its army to 50,000 personnel, and a number of other requirements that no country would accept. The United States is not telling the Ukrainians to fight, but the United States is significantly aiding the Ukrainians in their fight. The position of the U.S. government, however, under the new administration is that 3 years of war have not brought this conflict to the end. That the Russians themselves, having lost hundreds of thousands of men, showing their military to be a third world military that relies upon North Korea and Russian weaponry to survive, has been able to continue this conflict. Ukraine has lost hundreds of thousands of men. This does not appear to be a conflict which is moving to a conclusion. And the Trump administration's position is it's unwise to spend more time speaking about who started this, who is a dictator, who is responsible, because that rhetoric, even if it's true history, does not get us closer to calling this conflict to an end and saving lives and allowing us to move on. And so the Trump administration is moving to a diplomacy which in essence allows this conflict to be brought to a conclusion to save lives. This is very controversial in the United States and will be controversial in Ukraine because Russia is an aggressor, and there will be strong doubts that Russia will build up in the future to continue aggression at some other time. But the administration is seeking an end to the conflict to save lives and to rebuild the economy of Ukraine to give the country a different future.
Norman, you did hear my conversation before with the ambassador Ulyanov, and he was saying that they want peace talks, but long-lasting peace talks, not just a ceasefire. Do you believe that this is what Russia really wants and is working towards?
Well, Russia, like Iran, always wants peace talks, and he's correct, long peace talks as well. Long peace talks gives them a seat at the table with a great power. Long peace talks gives them a chance to erode and wear down their adversaries. But again, your viewers should just ask themselves, if Russia invaded, took 20% of their country, wanted to change their national language, et cetera, are those reasonable positions? The United States is saying it's going to be up to the Ukrainians to decide their future. But the United States is unwilling, under the Trump administration, to show the same enthusiasm for aid. So Russia will come to the table. And I think what is important is, even with the Trump administration's significant outreach and different attitude towards this conflict, there's no sign that Russia is going to adopt a conciliatory attitude. In fact, the ambassador alluded to long talks. That means more demands. So we may want to look past the rhetoric and the diplomacy of the moment and really focus on, when talks begin, what are Russia's actual demands? And this is for the Ukrainians to accept. But in the end of the day, your viewers have to say, would they accept this from an adversary country that has taken their territory?
Yesterday, the UK announced sanctions on Russia. Today is all about bolstering defence spending itself. Do you believe there is a significant fear from the UK and also from Europe that they'll be left exposed if they lose the support of the US?
Well, certainly, but the administration, the Trump administration's position is they've had 3 years to develop this plan. They've had 3 years to reset their military industrial base to adopt this position. But there are reports that the British military, the British Army, is smaller than at any time since the 18th century. That the Canadian Navy is smaller than the Navy of Iraq and Uruguay. So the Trump administration's position is that Europe talks about increasing aid, talks about improving military action, but does not achieve that. I think we need to look at President Macron's meeting in Europe, where he pulled together a number of European actors to determine what they would do to take the place of the U.S. and to move into Ukraine to provide it with security. It is notable and unfortunate from Washington's perspective that there remains a considerable lack of unity in Europe on something that so many European governments claim to be an existential threat to their own world. If it's existential to them, why is it that the United States must bear so much of the burden for paying and providing weaponry? That's the Trump position's view.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, the problem in Europe is there doesn't seem to be any unity when it comes to this. But I just wanted to ask you, Macron has called Putin the aggressor. Starmer actually called Russia a complete menace today, in many words, a menace in the seas and on land. Do you agree with this? And are they doing the right thing?
Well, again, history is history. Vladimir Putin is an aggressor. He authorized with his military to invade another country in violation of multiple international commitments. That's a historical fact. But dwelling on that and asking that question does not resolve this war. But there's another aspect here. Europe and parts of the American polity say that the initial negotiations between Russia and the United States to establish communications in Riyadh should not have taken place without Europe and Ukraine, because their security interests were at stake. At the same time, Europe had no problem in dealing with the United States with Iran without communicating to the Gulf Cooperation Council in Israel. Further, the same Europe that says do not speak to Vladimir Putin, who, because he is a bloody dictator, which is correct, they have no problems in saying the United States and Europe should deal with the supreme leader of Iran, who is a bloody dictator. So within Washington, there's a sense of dissonance on Europe's policies that seems to be they pick and choose the dictators of their choice and pick and choose the victims they will leave behind.
Norman T. Rule, former senior U.S. intelligence officer from Washington, thank you so much for your insights this evening.
Thank you.
To Rome now, where Pope Francis met with Vatican officials in hospital day today after showing a slight improvement and also sleeping well. The pontiff, who is battling pneumonia in both lungs, remains under medical supervision after being admitted with breathing difficulties and bronchitis. Hundreds of well-wishers have left candles outside Gemelli Hospital, whilst others have gathered in St. Peter's Square as they recite prayers for the 88-year-old. We can now go live to Rome to speak to the Vatican expert, Philip Pulella. Philip, so nice to have you on the show this evening. The Pope was well enough to do some work from the hospital today after showing a slight improvement in his health. Sources close to the Vatican reportedly say he's eating and moving about in his hospital room. How's he doing?
Yeah, that's pretty much correct. I mean, we shouldn't read too much into it. He's doing work. What do we mean by that? I mean, paperwork. Like anybody who's been in a hospital, there's an armchair in his bedroom. He's got a suite there, which is reserved for popes. So what they mean by that is that he's getting out of bed. He's not bedridden, sitting down. He's still on oxygen. He's giving some documents to sign or to approve of. And that is the extent of it. He is eating normally. He's not being fed intravenously. So, as you said, the latest signs are good. However, he is still in critical condition. The prognosis is still guarded in the sense that they still don't know how long he's going to be have to stay in the hospital. The latest this morning was that he had slept, that he rested all night. And so that's good. The latest medical bulletin should be coming out just in a matter of minutes, perhaps even when we're on the air. So we'll see, which will give us the latest details. And that's basically the situation. Another thing that came out last night is that he did have some kidney problems, in the sense that the slight amount of kidney failure, that is, his kidneys are not working as well as they should be. But the positive thing about last night was that the doctors say that they have that under control. It's a very, very complex situation with different kinds of microbes and viruses, etc., that are being attacked, fought against with various types of medicine. The timing is important. The number, the amount of cortisone, all these kinds of things that make it a very, very complex situation, particularly for someone who is 88 years old.
There appears to be some speculation around that he might actually resign. How likely is this, and what will happen if this does happen?
Well, I think it's under the present circumstances. I think it's highly unlikely, extremely unlikely. He has said several times that he would be willing to resign if he was totally incapacitated and thus unable to run the church. Now, what totally incapacitated means can be interpreted. What I interpret it as being sort of like being in a coma, having had a stroke or something like that. As we said earlier, he's sitting up in his hospital armchair and being able to sign documents. He's able to talk to aides. He's communicating with the doctors and the nurses who are treating him. They say he's vigilant, etc. That is as of last night's bulletin. There's a precedent, obviously, for a pope resigning. That was Pope Benedict, who resigned in February of 2013, allowing for the election of Francis. Now, at the beginning, Francis, while former Pope Benedict was alive, Francis continued referring to him as a grandfather in the house and that kind of stuff there. But after Benedict died, Pope Francis changed his tune somewhat and said that before he was saying that, a Pope Emeritus is something that we should get used to, but afterwards, excuse me, he said that it should not become a normal thing. And indeed, the 10-year period in which there were two men who were both wearing white inside the Vatican while former Pope Benedict was still alive caused a lot of confusion among the faithful. It added to a polarization of the church. And I don't think that Francis wants that to happen again.
Philip, we know that he's got a great sense of humour from everything I read, and he's been sent all these get well wishes from around the world. Even the stars of the Vatican thriller Conclave wish him well at the SAG Awards on Sunday. Will this mean a lot to the Pope?
Well, I'm not so sure he's going to be made aware of that, the thing about the stars of Conclave, unless one of the aides tells him. But I don't think there's a TV in the room. I'm sure that he would have a good time with that. I think that he would probably be quite amused by it. I don't think that he's seen the film yet. But there's been a lot of the children in particular. The 10th floor of the Gemelli Hospital, which has this section of it which is reserved for use only by popes. It adjoins another area which is used by other people, but it also adjoins a children's cancer ward. So the children in the next ward on the other side of the wall, so to speak, have been sending him a lot of get well cards, and some of them are very cute, sort of like stick man images of someone who is dressed in white, saying in Italian, mostly in Italian, get well soon and we love you and that kind of stuff there. They have brought some of these over to the Vatican press room to show journalists, and they're actually quite cute, and I'm sure that he is moved by that. He has also said that he is grateful for people who are wishing him well and praying for him. You're right. He does have a sense of humor. As his various ailments progressed over the past couple of years, he's become less mobile, had trouble with the knee. Every time someone would ask him how he was, I interviewed him twice, had a sit down with him twice. The last time I interviewed him in 2022, when I greeted him when he came into the room where we had set up, I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Well, I'm alive, as you see." So he does have a kind of sense of humor about his own health. He did say one time, I can't remember whether it was on the plane or we were traveling somewhere, or in another circumstance, where he said that he doesn't like pain. And he said that when he dies, he hopes it be very quick and not a painful death. Obviously, when you are feeling like you don't have any oxygen, you can't breathe, that's not very pleasant, but we'll hope for the best and see what tonight's medical bulletin says.
Philip Pulella, the Vatican expert, all I just want to say is it's always good to be alive. Thank you so much for joining me.
That's so true. Thank you.
A reminder of our top stories. Macron calls Putin an aggressor as he corrects President Trump's statement on Europe's financial aid to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer refers to Putin as a menace as he announces an increase to UK defence spending. It comes as the US sides with Russia at the UN opposing a resolution that condemned Moscow's actions over the 3-year conflict with Ukraine. And the Pope spends another night in hospital as thousands of well-wishers gather together in Rome. And that's all from us on W News. Thank you so much for joining us. The dressing room is coming up next, and don't miss Tom Burges Watson with GNT. Good night, and thank you for joining us.
At Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News.
It's very impressive.
Where knowledge meets perspective.
Welcome to the dressing room with our Arabiya News. Good to see you, chaps.
Good to see you. He's back, ready, got a tan.
Yeah, a little tan from the slopes, mate. It was a good week.
Is it?
Good week. I love skiing, but do you know what was really frustrating? My kids are still better than me at skiing. Like, and they let me know. Like,
Still better.
Still better.
You've not improved one bit.
Now,
I can't. It's gone now, isn't it? Like, I'm at the back, and that condescending look behind the mountain, and I'm just there, just like going, Dad.
You're just taking your time.
Oh, geez, right. So when we went,
the kids started following me. But we go off piece a little bit, come on, little jumps, and all I can hear him in the background is going, "No, don't follow him."
my Harry went to me, Dad, I love skiing. He said, I prefer it when Bridgie's there because he's like a big kid. I was like, just fueling him up with sweets on the lift.
I've got to make it out to.
Geez, you'd love it. But no, what he done to me, like, I was embarrassing, right? Because he's naughty, my youngest, and I'm waiting at the lift, and he's getting fidgety, and you know you're a little bit unbalanced. So he's knocked me, but I'm on my skis, and I've stumbled onto this person, stumbled onto them, right? And I'm saying sorry, and he's gone, Dad, how are you getting bodied by a 9-year-old?
Oh my gosh,
this kid. And I'm like looking at it, and everyone's looking at me like, oh mate.
Do you know what? Yeah, that's the worst thing because like my son, 13 now, and he just walks around the house eyeing me up.
Does he?
He's sizing me up like to think, I can do this guy now. I'm at the size and the level where I think, and because he's doing well in his football now, he thinks he's the boy.
Does he?
So, yeah, like, that's the worst thing. And then when they do, like, give you a knock and you stumble, because you're not...
Yeah.
They think, like, I was like, you don't want me to use my man strength on you. I don't even want to have to go there with you anyway. Like, you're a little kid, but I'm going to have to. It's going to have to come out soon, Bridgie. Trust me.
You're going to have to, man.
Yeah, man, you have to show him.
So how was Siddy? He done...
Yeah.
I love Siddy, by the way.
Oh, Siddy's a top person, top character. The Crouch Pods really... like, they know what they're doing when they signed him up, because he was like, they're so lucky to have him, man. But he's such a great guy, great personality, as I said. Hopefully, and actually, I got some good stories out of him.
Yeah.
We did, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like, the number nine dog, Chelsea. That was a good story.
He's good at it.
Yeah, but there's loads of other things that he said that was really good. But yeah, you weren't missed.
Yeah. Siddy's that guy. I actually had a bad turn about a year ago at TNT, where I fainted. Right, I had a little bug, but everyone was panicking, and Sid's is that guy that just cool, calm, and collected. Like, brought me round. Everyone was calm. He's just that guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's that guy.
Measured. That's happened to him before, though.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you lot, man? Low blood sugar levels or something. What's going on?
It's hard out there, Coley. It's hard out there.
A lot of pressure on you, yeah?
Living in Chelsea.
Made it back for the night out, though, didn't you, Guy?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we had a little night out. It was lovely. We had a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. I am feeling it a little bit today still.
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm a bit jaded.
Yeah, jaded.
So I think it's the
jaded
sleep.
edge.
Obviously, there's a few lads out there ain't got kids.
Yeah. They don't understand, do they?
Until like 3 p.m. the next day.
Is it?
Yeah.
Decent.
They don't understand. Just the levels. Getting up, football.
Yeah, they don't get it, do they?
I was playing swing ball at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, you're special, mate. All right, Geese, how are you? Yeah, I'm playing swing ball in the garden. February.
I lost my phone. You know, like,
messy.
I don't want to get into it, but it's not. It's not when you get to the level of losing your phone, then you know it's a mess, innit?
That's the worst feeling. Yeah. That's the worst feeling ever. Yeah. Losing the phone.
Anyway,
what you do last week, Bridgie? Anything?
No, I didn't get up too much last week, to be honest. It's fairly
subdued.
It's a quiet week. Mate. It was a quiet week. Yeah.
Well, the football.
I had a little I had to leave my mate's moving to Australia.
Right.
She's from Australia. She's taking the whole family. So he had a few leaving drinks, but it was quiet because we were going out the next day.
Right.
So I popped along for a little bit.
A quiet Wainbridge drink. That's a rarity.
Yeah, it's quiet.
That is a rarity. Should we get on to the football?
Yeah, come on.
Right, let's get on to the football then. Right.
Title race.
Title race.
Wow.
Over.
Is there a title race?
Romeo done.
It's over, isn't it?
It's over, innit?
Yeah, mic drop. See you later.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of bookies that have paid out on them already.
Have they?
Yeah. That's bold, but I'll be half inclined to think that's the right.
Saying how they get through this next period because they had 3 tough games. Well, it was Villa, City, and then I can't remember who they got next.
It was Everton, wasn't it? It was the derby.
Yeah, the derby.
Oh, yeah.
So they drew 2 and won 1.
Yeah.
I think we said
we were saying they might lose momentum. How's it going to affect them? But
and they got Newcastle as well next. So there's like 4 tough games really.
Yeah,
they've come
but then
through
you look
all right.
at
Arsenal dropping points.
Yeah, and then you got Arsenal dropping points. That's the main part for me, the Arsenal thing. Because look, you always got to have someone chasing you to go and do. But Arsenal were the ones that were the closest for me, and they've just dropped off. And obviously against West Ham, they was expected to win that game, and they didn't.
They done well by the West Ham. I was impressed by they were pressing, closing down.
Yeah,
they looked up for it.
Yeah,
aggressive with the pressing. Always on them.
Yeah, we'll get onto that quickly. I just want to ask, Cole, I want to ask you as a striker now.
Yeah.
Right. Did you hear Pep? I read something into it a little bit when he said Erling Haaland told me he couldn't play. You know, sometimes managers.
Did he stop?
Yeah.
Wow.
He said, do you read into that? Because usually if a manager goes, he'll get a question asked and he'll be like, oh, he couldn't play or he's injured. But to actually take the time out to go, Erling Haaland said he couldn't play.
He couldn't play.
That says to me that he thinks Erling could have played. Maybe. You know.
Yeah. So for me, you want to play as a striker anyway. Even when I had one knee out there, I was limping.
Yeah.
I could just get one chance and it's in the net.
Yeah.
You know. So you'd want to play, but it doesn't look like he's enjoying his football. Are they enjoying their football? Or is it a big game? If they're not getting the result, and they've not been used to this, Man City, they're used to being winners, not coming second fiddle to no one. But that quote there, it gives me a little bit of doubt that does he trust him? Because if the player's saying I can't play, and he's probably thinking you can, but you're not exerting yourself. That's why I'm reading it. Because the wording's very particular.
Yeah.
Erling Haaland said he cannot play.
Yeah. I think that's the tough one though, because you got to know the player because I feel like I would always, if I can play, I'll play.
Right.
But if I ever feel something,
that's not right.
That's not right. If I'm 50-50 or I'm unsure, I'll probably just go and play. But I remember at Man City, I said to Platty, I'd only just come back from injury. I said, you know what, I can feel my quad.
Yeah.
It just don't feel right.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember what Mancini said, but he was acting like I didn't want to play. And I said, well, I want to play. So I just went ahead and played anyway. I tore my quad in 2 places.
See?
Yeah.
So it's...
Yeah. You got, as a manager, you got to trust your player, though.
Yeah, you got to trust in what they're saying.
You got to trust your player. Like, look, for me, I'll always say, how you feeling first? Because I want you to be top notch. I want you to be 100%. We're not going to be 100%, but I want you to be capable of doing the things you usually do on a Saturday. Sometimes even your presence on the football pitch. Yeah. So if you're a goal scorer and you're a goal threat, it changes the whole aspect of how the opposition look at that team.
Yeah.
They don't think they can just go and have an easy game. Just you being on there, you might be 50% fit, but just having that one name, Erling Haaland, on the pitch, it sends a message to everybody else. Yeah. So sometimes you have to, as a player, sacrifice sometimes your fitness for the good of the team.
Yeah,
you know, and you might not have that. People might question you. Oh, he wasn't at it today, but there was a reason why he was, and the manager knows that, and you sacrifice going out on that pitch for him.
That's the thing. So, we're not saying that Erling Haaland didn't want to play. Like he's obviously he's injured. You know, what I mean? He's a warrior, the geezer. He wants to play. But when you go out on the pitch, you're never 100%, are you, Bridgie, really? Whenever you're out there, you're never at your absolute perfect best. But the fans, as soon as you pull that strip they expect you to be the person that they've seen you in weeks before. Yeah. So it's a difficult decision. I remember playing games where I remember playing a game for Villa. Right? There weren't many I played at Villa, but I was bad to play. My hip was so bad, right? I'm getting out of my car, I know when you lift your leg out, like you just, this hip flip, I couldn't even lift it up.
Wow.
So they're looking at me and I'm holding my trousers trying to get my leg out of the car to go and play in the Premier League. And I'm limping
That's
in like,
mad, isn't it?
And I'm limping. I'm thinking I'm not telling the physio because I was like, man, I so wanted to play.
This as well.
And I was like, I got into the game, and it was within minutes. I was like, nah, it's not me. But you got like, sometimes you're your own worst enemy when you push yourself through, and sometimes you got to do it. It's a hard balance to get. But I just thought with Pep, I thought there was a little something there. He wasn't happy. Little dig, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a little dig because you don't go out to the press and do that. You do always protect. He's always known for protecting his players. So for him to single them out like that was kind of strange.
Yeah, do you know what I heard from him? I can't remember who told me. He said, like, you know, like he's obviously got 23 world-class players, and he says to these teammates, he said, look, if I don't pick you and you think you should be picked, come see me. Feel free, absolutely, but bring the player you think you should be picked instead of.
Oh, no.
That's awkward.
Imagine that.
I should be.
Cody, come with me for a minute.
I'm trying along. I'm behind you. I don't even know what's going on.
You can go, Gaffer. Really? But it's brilliant. I think that's absolutely brilliant.
That's ballsy.
It's ballsy, yeah. I wonder if anyone. Be good to know we know any Man City players if anyone's ever pulled that stroke.
Oh, mate.
Because even for the banter alone.
I can imagine anyone.
For banter. I'll do it for banter. Mate. I'll do it for banter. I'll say, listen, lads, watch this. What I'm going to do to him. I'm pulling him up. I'm going to bring him into the room. I'm going to say I should be playing in front of him.
Dragging Didier Drogba into Jose.
Listen, Did he? Can I have a word of it? Come, let's go. And then I'll go, listen, Jose. I should be playing in front of him, yeah?
He's not
the last 2 games. That would actually be quite funny. But I think they'll just laugh me off and just get me on my way.
It's brilliant. I've never... it'd be interesting to know. But going back quickly to Liverpool and Salah in particular, Bridgie, does his name stand up there with the best now? With your own reason?
Anyway.
Yeah, I think it has to.
I think it has, not even now, even before.
Yeah. Longevity.
Just the way he's in such good shape still, and and like players seem to know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
He's going to cut inside, he's going to curl it. He can go either way. Like the way he changes direction. Like, he's brilliant, isn't he?
He's a record breaker, isn't he? Now, so come on, he deserves his flowers right now.
He does deserve his flowers,
and that's the way it is. No other way that you want to look at or paint that job. He is that man, innit?
Yeah.
He is the man, and look, you just got to respect and take your hat off to him. He's going to be a proper iconic figure.
For me, it's just crazy how they let him go.
He's a proper iconic figure already, though. Like, he's done. I think even if he leaves this at the end of the season, who can say anything?
He's up there with Stevie, with Kenny Dalglish.
He's got to be.
I know Scousers might. I don't know. Maybe they listen. Certain foreign signings, he's probably the best I've seen. I think incredible. And he's not letting up. He's still going.
He goes, with 11 games remaining, Salah is just 6 goals contributions short of breaking the all-time single-season record and only 3 behind the record for a 38-game season. But, you see, look one thing for me about goal contributions, right? Like, I know that it's a new thing that they add. Like, when did they start counting these goal contributions? Because there must have been players back in the day that was just doing it at will. But now it's being counted. You know what I'm trying to say? Because there never used to be a thing when I was growing up. I don't
remember goal contributions.
No one cared about the pass before the pass. Do you know what I mean? No one cared about... Sometimes the assist. If you weren't on the score sheet, no one cared. Like, you know what I mean? So, I see these records, they're just making up stuff as they go along sometimes.
I'm with you on that. It says here Liverpool surely can't let him go, but like surely he's just sitting there thinking, I'm going to do what I want. Does he want to have a couple of years in Paris? Does he want to go to Saudi?
Yes, we don't know what he wants to do, but you think
if he's on a free, anywhere in the world, surely 2-year contract at least.
Oh, anywhere.
Be great.
Do you reckon there's a chance he stays though? Do you reckon they do everything they can to keep him though?
I think there's every chance.
I mean, you just think, why isn't it sorted yet? So then you start thinking, well, it's not going to happen. He's going to go.
Yeah.
I think there's a drum roll.
You think so?
There's a drum roll.
I think there's a drum roll, and then it's going to be all hunky dory at the end of the season. They will have won the league, and it says, and we can announce our new signing,
Mo Salah.
Salah. It's got to be in it, surely.
I don't know how you replace him.
You can't. I tell you what, this leads me on to the next subject. Looking how to replace him, my mind goes straight to Saka. I say that because for Arsenal's defeat to West Ham, that is going to crush their title dreams. Arteta said his team deserved the pain.
Ooh.
So that's like...
Why? Why did they deserve the pain?
He's obviously upset.
I think the way they play... Not deserve it, it's probably just the way they played.
Yeah. They weren't good, were they?
No.
They weren't good.
Discipline-wise, just...
Did you find it strange, Bridgie? He brought off Declan Rice and Calafiori after 56 minutes.
Yeah, they obviously weren't performing.
Yeah.
So...
Declan never...
He's Mr. Consistent, isn't he?
Mr. Consistency.
The sending off obviously killed them. But like I said, I thought West Ham played really well.
Yeah.
The way they pressed them, got about them.
Yeah.
They looked really good. Who was the right back again?
Wan-Bissaka.
He looked good, bombing up and down.
Yeah.
Wan-Bissaka looked
for the
fitter.
goal.
He looks fitter, doesn't he?
They all looked
up for it.
They were pressing. They were just at it.
I think, and they've got a sense of direction now. They've got a leader that's told them, this is what you do in this situation, that's what you do in this, and you make sure you attack it. And it's explained to them so nice and simple. Footballers don't need too much information.
Yeah.
They just need a bit of direction on what to do in certain aspects, and then the rest will take over your talent. But
when I look at them where they were pressing, it's the way they went as a team.
Yeah, as a team.
Everyone in front of them going, they were getting backed up and just pressed really well. There was no space.
Yeah, they look youthful, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think if you can do that well, the way the game is at the moment, when people try and play around the back all the time, rather than going long.
Yeah.
Not that I like it, but when I see someone just clear the ball, I think that's good because where you don't do it, they don't do it enough now.
Sense of danger.
They try and play, and then there's a little mistake.
Yeah.
There's not enough of it anymore.
Remember James Collins?
Yeah.
When he's cleared. Said to me, he's cleared one, smashed it into the rosette of the stand.
Yeah.
And someone's gone, play. He's gone, they can't score from up there.
They can't score there. He's always said that. Yeah. He's always said James Collins is a top man.
Always made me chuckle that. Sorry, Paul, I want to ask you quickly about the left back, Skulls. Yeah. He done particularly well for me.
Ollie Skulls, that's what I was going to...
One of your guys?
No, look, so Ollie Skulls, I've coached him. I'm not saying that he's learned anything off me, but I just know that there's a load of people that's got a hand in his development. And look, he was one of those ones that was looking probably to go out and learn if we weren't going to get no game time by January. But
really,
yeah, Graham Potter came in straight away and said, "We're keeping him. He's like hopefully the next in line to be one of our regular left backs in the future." So
yeah,
I already know that he's got it. Like he's a top boy, top player. He did start. Remember that game he started. Me and you covered it.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yes.
They played, was it in Russia or somewhere like that, away in the European game. Yeah, I can't remember what game it was. And he started that game and he was the best player on the pitch.
Yes.
He was the best player on the pitch and he was only 16.
Wow.
Yeah, 16
you know what?
at the time.
He played against Chelsea. He came on against Chelsea, didn't he?
Yeah, he came on, yeah.
And it's funny, you know...
Him and Lewis Orford.
Yes, who's another good footballer, another young good footballer at West Ham. But I'll see a player do one or two things with me, and he done something... Scarves done, the ball's come out the sky and he's received it with, like with the outside of his boot, and left back and just on the half volley. And I was like,
he's proper.
Show me, you're for me.
Straight away.
There's always little moments like that, and he takes the ball.
It's the way we look at football, like someone looking with their lens, and then we look at football totally different because we look at it in a different angle, a perspective, I should say.
Yeah.
And when you see certain skills that a player produces on the football pitch, you'll think, and it might be the most simplest thing.
Yeah.
Like a first touch.
Yeah.
No,
just the way he's taking it in, the way his body's gone soft knees and all that. You say, baller.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You do. Straight away, you can just see it. Like, and it's so, and there's not a lot of people that can see it that's like a fan and everything, because they're not looking at it like that. They're looking at it from another lens, which is quite... And talking about another young player for Arsenal, the young lad, Skelly.
Yeah.
Poor lad, gets sent off.
Yeah. Second one this month.
You know what? That sending off, it was Kudus, wasn't it, who was closing him down?
Mate.
He put so much pressure on some of the Arsenal players at times.
Kudus was outstanding.
Who were aggressive, and it was like, it's like they thought it was just going to be easy. I'm just going to turn out here and do that, mate. The pressure they put on was good, mate.
Kudus stood up yesterday and he was counted. And that's what we...
him.
Yeah, look, we've seen what he could do from last season. He was who was unplayable. He's scoring goals, running from the edge of his box all the way to the other side. We don't see that in the Premier League or in Europe as well. He was doing that as well. Yeah. So he's coming into his own. He's got a manager that's going to believe in him now again, and hopefully he can progress to the next level. But Skelly, for me, was it a sending off or not?
Yeah. It's a sending off. It's sending off. Because the goalkeeper killed him.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper killed him. I think the ref's gone yellow card because it's on the halfway line.
Yeah.
But then VAR's gone to him. Have a look, because the goalkeeper's in no man's land.
Yeah.
And even it was on Kudus' right foot, but he's got you'd expect the Premier League footballer, their weak foot, to be able to kick the ball.
Yeah, it's true.
The goalkeeper can't do nothing. Yeah. So I think that was the reason. So I think they got it right. I feel for the kid, and I do like the kid.
There's struggles, though. They're struggling attacking-wise as well. They're not creating any chances, Arsenal. Which is a bit worrying. And you ain't got well, you say striker, but you got to create for the striker, surely. Like, even if there's not a striker there, the creation's still got to be there at least. Someone's just not finishing it off. But they didn't look like they was going to create anything. Like, it was a bit weird. That's a weird Arsenal performance for me. Like,
flat.
West Ham were brilliant, don't get me wrong, but Arsenal, with all the money they spend and everything that they are, I was expecting a load more, and they're chasing the title as well.
Yeah, I think when you win the title, when you're up there, and I remember being at Chelsea, it's like when you don't play so well, but you grind out a result. Liverpool have done that well. This year, they might not have played the best, but they've got a result. Arsenal don't seem to do that.
No, they don't do it as well as
And they're not playing like.
If they're not on it, they don't seem to grind out a result.
Like, no, they don't. And
what is that? What is that missing? Was it the still? Is it the heart?
I think it's a little. I don't know if it's. I think it's a little bit of nous. Like, it's a little bit of, and variety. Like, because teams, West Ham would dropping off into a low block at times. Arsenal were going wide and wide, where it would usually go to Saka, and he had that one-on-one power there, and Martinelli on the other side. That wasn't there, so they wasn't getting on the outside, and they couldn't have the ability to clip one into the centre forward because there's no one there.
No one there.
So I think no variety, no nous, not no nous. That's unfair. Lack of. That's the next bit Arsenal need to get to if they're going to do it. But we
say that. But say that as well, yeah. Are they going to do it? Like ever? Wasn't this year the year?
Yeah.
And we can talk about injuries. We can talk about not having a good rhythm at the moment because they haven't got rhythm. But when you spend that much, you need to give the fans something positive to speak about. Like, we're getting closer. So they got close to the title twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still no cigar. Yeah.
Yeah.
This year, you're expecting, well, Man City's not here. We've got to actually go out and make sure that we stand part. But Liverpool's just come and taken their seat.
Yeah.
That's what it looks to me. Liverpool just came from nowhere and said, you're not taking that seat, I'll sit there, thanks.
They're emotional as well, the Arsenal fans at the moment, aren't they?
I love seeing them emotional, though.
How long does Arteta have to go without having any silverware?
I have a word, right? Because I listened to TalkSport on the way in, and the amount of Arsenal fans calling for Arteta's head, I'm like,
are they?
We're not there. Yeah, it's a
See, I'm not. See, I haven't even listened to that. I'm just going off.
You're just going what I
think, what they might be thinking, because
that's proper
another
emotional.
another title blow. Like, come on, man. Like,
guys,
this is the year that you're supposed to do it. Man City are nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, Man City.
Can't use Man City as a cushion to say, oh, well, we can't. Man City are nowhere to be seen. Now it's Liverpool. They've just come and taken your seat now. Right. So you just need to kind of look at that. Is this acceptable?
It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
Anyway, yeah.
Should we stay in
West Ham won. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Bash.
It's done, isn't it? It's done. It's over. It's Liverpool's.
Should we first of all? Should we stay in North London then? Let's stay at Spurs. 4-1 victory over Ipswich. Postecoglou makes a comeback. 3 Premier League wins on the bounce. Spurs dominant win. Now, I don't think that was the case. It was a 4-1 win. But it wasn't
dominant.
It wasn't dominant. Ipswich was still in it, you know what I mean? Brennan Johnson coming, he scored 2. Son got another 2 assists. Ruthless finishing from Speds and Kulusevski.
Yeah.
It's a step in the right direction.
It's a step in the right direction.
Do you know what I mean? It's where they've been.
Yeah.
I like the story about Jed Spence, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
They've given him time. He went out on loan. didn't really pull up any trees on loan either.
Yeah.
He's come back into the fold and he's got his head down and he's making a good go of it. So well done to Jed.
Yeah.
Really, really happy for him. But yeah, for the Spurs situation, they had to win this game. Come on, 4-1. Like, if you're not winning this, then you're just throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
And they have 4 games in the past.
They've got a favourable draw in the Europa League as well, like a route. So
Players coming back from injuries.
Players coming back from injuries. I still think there could be a happy ending for the season for Spurs. But I don't think that's the story with Spurs, because I just want to bring this to your attention, right? Tottenham's branding shift. If you've got an irate fan base that's already on the verge of not on the verge of turning. They're turning. They've gone. They don't like Daniel Levy. They're frustrated.
They're protesting.
And then you send out this nonsense to the
I saw this.
Broadcasters.
Yeah.
Only wanted to refer them as Tottenham Hotspur or Spurs, avoiding Tottenham alone. The club has removed Tottenham Hotspur from its crest, favouring a simplified design featuring a cockerel. With look, this is just stinks of like these marketing people that have come out of university and gone, right, what works with branding? Right, London, we want to be associated with London, because that's cool. We don't want to be associated with Tottenham because it ain't Mayfair. It's not in fairness. Like,
It's
I'm from
unnecessary,
North London.
though.
It's actually condescending to the people of Tottenham.
Yeah.
And I think the Tottenham
Just trying to
fans,
detach away from the area.
Listen, I'm going to call it White Hart Lane.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to call it.
I'm calling them Tottenham.
I'm calling them Tottenham now.
3 Point Lane. That's probably why they want to do it.
No, but like, England legend Stuart Pearce has criticised the moves as unnecessary and poorly timed. I think he's right, Pearce.
It is unnecessary.
Absolutely.
It's unnecessary, and it's definitely poorly timed.
What's the point?
Like, you're going through such a bad
Yeah.
spell. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Are you doing?
This is not the time for
What
this.
are you thinking?
Mate.
That's how you know they don't have their feelers out.
Yeah.
See, like, football clubs, please, just listen to me.
Yeah.
Everything has its time, yeah? There's sometimes you just don't have to do it.
Yeah.
If you planned it at the start of the season, it was going to be at this date.
Yeah.
Fill the room a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not the right time to do this, but because they've got 4 games on the bounce now, they're looking all right. They're thinking, now's the time because we're desperate to get this out. You know what I mean? So that's probably what they're thinking right now. They've done 4 games on a row with no losses. They're all right.
Yeah, listen, imagine you're a lifelong Tottenham fan.
Yeah.
You live in Tottenham, and this is just
Your
like...
club's trying to detach itself away from your area.
Detach it from your area. Clubs, it's about community. Clubs has always been about, the people, the fans.
Yeah.
Do we not forget about COVID when there was no fans in the crowd?
Oh,
how
mate.
rubbish it was.
Yeah.
We tried our best in the broadcasting world to make out there. I was at games. I was very lucky to do it because it was all locked away, but me watching the game with an ham sandwich and no one around me, Premier League game.
A Premier League game.
I was like, it was like going to watch park football.
Yeah,
fans
basically.
make it, and you...
A bit better than park football games
Yeah,
on
no,
the
no.
whole big stadium.
No,
but watching the vets.
Yeah, it's like...
There's no one in there.
There was the passion was taken out of it, and I thought to myself, at least the executives, the board members and the owners who own these clubs, would be a little reminder of where the heart and the soul of football is. So...
It's corporate, man. That's corporate now. It's corporate business.
It's just stupid.
It's
plain
stupid.
simply stupid.
Franchising. Franchise. That's all they're doing, franchising, trying to make it...
Mate, it's like, people ain't that stupid. Like, we're going to, like... Anyway.
But the focus is definitely misplaced at the moment, innit?
Very
So they just need to fill the room. It's not the right time. But that's their club, innit? Let them crack on.
Exactly. But I still think... For Tottenham fans, I still think there might be a run in the Europa League. Like Bridgie said, the players coming back will be massive. And at the start of the season, there was talk of them pushing Champions League. So I still think there's an option there to get up. Right, where should we go now, chaps? I mean,
Chelsea.
Let's go. Yeah, should we go Chelsea?
Chelsea.
It's another one, mate. It's another club where. What did you think? What did you make of it?
It's keeper, innit? It's just such a bad mistake. It's just a bad mistake, innit? It's one of the worst positions ever.
Yeah.
But they've had
one little mistake.
Reggie,
they've been struggling with keepers. Like my son's a goalkeeper. And honestly, I get so nervous watching it. It's just one little mistake and it goes in.
Does it affect him if he makes a mistake?
It used to. He's got better.
Yeah,
he has got better.
How'd you...
I'm more nervous watching him than I was ever playing.
Really?
Yeah, especially as a goalie.
Yeah. Do you remember?
That must dent a goalie's confidence so much, but they've been struggling, haven't they?
In that keeper department, they definitely have. Like since Peter Cech. Since Peter Cech.
No, they had Courtois.
Courtois, sorry.
Yeah.
Since Courtois, there's just not been the same. They've not had a settled goalkeeper. They've tried Mendy for big dough as well.
Yeah.
Kepa came in. He's arguing with the gaffer on the FA Cup final.
Yeah,
FA Cup final.
League Cup final, yeah.
Yeah, League Cup final. Like coming off, like there's been no law and order there. They need to get some kind of form of goalkeeper. There's loads of goalkeepers in Europe. Going to Europe, you could go and get a great. Like, he might not be in the top leagues.
Yeah.
You could try and source it out. I don't know how goalkeeper. Like, I've talked to Xavi Valero down at West Ham.
Right.
And their system is so different to our first teams on how they select. Even their loans are different. Like, the goalkeepers.
Right.
Like, it's a different world.
Yeah.
It's totally a different world. Yeah, and I just want, like, for a club like Chelsea to have the system that they're getting the best goalkeepers. I don't think you can do the money ball system with goalkeepers. I think you just need one steady goalkeeper that's going to just turn out performances and lead your team. Keepers are now focused on how to play out from the back. Remember the goalkeepers like a Schmeichel or... they were always domineering. There was always, I'm not going to make a mistake in front of him. So I'm going to... assured. Are these goalkeepers sending... that message to the centre halves now, or their right back or their left back? How are they good at communicating? When I look at Chelsea, I don't think they've had that since Courtois. I don't think they have it.
It's obviously something, like you said, it's something systemically wrong, because you can't have 9 goalkeepers on your book and not know which one's your number one. You've got 2 out. You've got Kepa out on loan, Petrovic out on loan. There's some young. You brought some young, promising ones. If your system works well, you shouldn't make as many mistakes that have been made with goalkeepers. I think it's actually...
What's the scouting like? I don't get... What are they looking for in a goalkeeper? That's the one thing you got to always go for. What are they looking for? Is it domineering? Is it a good attitude? Is it just a shot stopper?
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own thing. Or is it playing out from the back? Got good ball retention.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what they want. So, and it's looking like that they don't know what they want, judging by the keeper that they employ.
Do you know, I think one of the best goalies in the league at the moment, Sells from Forest.
Yeah.
Mate.
Is he top, yeah?
Watch him play. Assured, makes saves.
Made some great saves.
I don't know whether he's having a golden period in his time, but they are out there. You just got to pick the right one.
Also, the Chelsea didn't exactly play great either.
No.
You know what I mean, with what was in front of him, but it was a bad mistake. It's good to see Rashford.
Yeah.
I said to him, he's got so much ability.
Yeah.
He done.
Looks like he's on it now.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah. What I liked about him is the way he was running at people, real positive, but then he wasn't greedy with it. Sometimes he passed at the right time.
Yeah.
Not making about him.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad he's done well. And I think Villa could kick on. That's a massive win for Villa when you think about it. You know, to go and Marco Asensio scored twice in the second half, and both their signings in January. It's not often you see that from a club. They go right, bang, bang, January, and it just lifts the whole place.
Yeah,
they got the Champions League.
Who's got the best out of Marcus? Everyone was writing him off.
Yeah,
he's getting the best out of him. He's bringing something to the table.
Yeah,
tell when you hear the manager talk though. Like I reckon he's put an arm around him maybe and just like wants to get the best out of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
they probably feel better about themselves. Different challenge.
Definitely. I'm looking at that.
Mentally.
And that's all we need sometimes. A little arm around us saying we're doing the right thing. Or, you've had a bad time over there. Come with us. We'll sort you out. That's all you need.
Cole, who in your career, as a striker, we all know strikers need a little bit more love.
Yeah.
Who give you the love?
Zola was
just made you feel brand new.
Zola, because remember I had Zola and Steve Clark. Steve Clark was my youth team manager when he came to West Ham. When he came to West Ham, he was already my youth team manager when I was at Chelsea. And Zola I played up front with, and he knew, like when me and him were playing up front together, he knew what I liked. Do you know what I mean? So we had a good combination. And I made my starting debut with Franco. Do you know what I mean? So I knew once he walked in them doors, I was the buffs in business. Because I'd already started to gain momentum under Kerbishley. And then when Kerbishley left, then I knew I had a striker as my... What can't you learn? Do you know what I mean? And if he puts the belief and power into you, he made me feel like I was the best player on the pitch. I weren't, but I felt like that. and it doesn't matter what anybody else told me. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm definitely I'm like going to be the best on the pitch. Every time I go out on this pitch, I'm the best. That's how I felt, and that's all a striker needs sometimes. Might not be the best player, but he's going to bang goals, and that's what I'm there for. Or I'm there to hold the ball up and bring others into play. Whatever you're using, just make that player feel great about himself.
Who's that with you, Bridgie? Any managers?
Probably the one who stands out most for me is probably Dave Jones when I first started.
Yeah,
because he just believed in me.
Right.
I remember him saying I'll end up playing for England one day because he moved me to left back. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said I'd end up playing for England.
Is it?
But probably the most positive would have been Glenn Hoddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glenn Hoddle, yeah.
He kind of ended up making that left back spot my own, and it was just so ahead of his time. Like the mental side of the game, he had me doing visualisation techniques and stuff.
Yeah.
He brought someone in so far ahead of his time that players just weren't having none of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if some of the best players in the world, it's probably who people don't know they would be doing stuff like that, work on the mental side, the visualisation. I know Didier Drogba did it. It'd probably be him, and I see him not long ago actually, because I started doing some work with a life coach, started doing a bit more meditating again, and it reminded me of back in the day with Glenn Hoddle, and I ended up bumping into him, and he was talking about the mind and what it does for the body and everything like that. So he was really good for me.
He was streets ahead of his time. I work with Glenn, and it's always like an education when you work with him. I
saw you working with him, and I was because we talked about Glenn before. I remember you was going to work with him that day, and I was like, he's going to I saw Bridgie. Bridgie speaks highly of you.
Yeah. Mate, honestly, he had at Southampton, he had us in 6th position, I think, when he left. I mean, we were never really that high. We were playing some unbelievable football, playing the formation of when Mourinho came along. When we started playing 4-3-3, not a lot of teams are doing that.
No.
We were playing that at Southampton.
Really?
Yeah, we played that at Southampton.
Where did you play? Left back or left?
I played left back. And then he had me just bombing on, so the midfield in front of me.
I think I remember.
He's ahead of his time, man. You're right, because no one was playing like that.
Well,
no one was playing like that.
You beat us at Upton Park and you battered us. And I think you played that, but
But Mourinho gets like the plaudits for it because he done it and won the league with it. Do you know what I mean? So that he gets he changed the face of the.
Do you know what it's, Coley? It's these rebranding people that come. People. Like Klopp, Klopp rebranded pressing. The Gengen press was going like what's shutting down? Yeah, that's what, you know what I mean. Yeah. So you get these people, they put a new name on it, and they think they've invented.
Shutting down. Just get. You know what I mean? Come on, just put a new name on it, and it says new spin. And says, this is the future of football. Yeah. I know. Mate, it's been done. There's no style of football that's never been done.
Exactly.
Like even the Pep era. This style of football happened back in the day. It was just wasn't recorded.
Yeah,
it weren't recorded. Like just because there was no. It's not what we've got on our. There's no digital. It wasn't a digital era back then, so you would not see how they played unless you saw video. Do you know what I mean? And you can't even have a video over them.
Right, chaps. The early kickoff, Man United, Everton, VAR delays. Ashley Young dive. I mean, it was a strange game, wasn't it? It was a strange game. What did you make of it, Coley?
I didn't see it.
Good answer.
I didn't see it. Look, I was busy concentrating on other things at that time, but. What I would say is obviously Ashley Young, he's been known for diving before.
Wow, calling out Youngie, yeah?
He has. I think there was an important game last year, I think, and it was forever. And it was one of the teams right at the bottom struggling for points.
Right.
And I think he dived in that game and he actually got a penalty, you know? And I felt sorry for the other team. But he did, so he's known for it. But I'm not saying he has in this one because I haven't seen it. So he's got previous. So Dive and Ashley Young, those two coupled together, those names coupled together, I kind of think he might have.
Okay, it was 39.
And when I see him, I'll tell him to his face.
He does dive a lot. But it's a penalty. It's a penalty. He's pulled his shirt and pulled back a little bit. He's made a meal of it.
Yeah.
I said it before. Like, if pulling a shirt and what happened to him would have put him off his stride and where he was going. He's made a meal of it.
Yeah.
But book him for diving, but give the penalty as well.
Did you ever give any penalties away in your career? Because you was very
Why you got to bring
cautious.
this up?
No. I just remembering that.
Oh, mate.
Only one.
Bring this up to me all the time.
Every day.
Oh,
Only
Tottenham won something, mate. Don't need it bringing up again.
There must have been only one, because for fullbacks...
Yeah. No,
The only
my
reason...
West Ham debut, bringing up all my best memories, Joe.
But you must have played 500 games.
Nothing, but you're the one you're triggering him right now.
Sorry, man.
You're traumatised.
But how would you defend now with VAR? Would that have affected you?
Oh, yes, you can't get... we spoke about it before. You cannot get away with anything, really, can you?
Yeah.
The little things you used to get away with, little tugs in or little things off the ball. Just, it's very, very hard. You know, you make a challenge now.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of these challenges aren't really that bad. And when you watch them in slow-mo...
Oh.
Yes,
it can look a lot worse.
It looks way worse. In real time, it's like... Oh,
who was it? There was someone this week, and I can't remember who it was for, but they've gone to tackle and his foot's hit the ball and bounced up and caught the guy right near the shin around the ankle. But it wasn't a bad tackle.
Yeah.
It's not actually that bad. And I can't remember if it got put to a sending off or not. It might have been that one, but it's when you're watching it in slow motion, it looks a lot worse. But I'll be looking at that on VAR and going...
I think you're talking about Skelly again. He got sent off and it looked like he went over, but he didn't. And it wasn't, and he got rescinded in the end.
Yeah, it was... No, it was this weekend. I'm sure it was this weekend, yeah. And it wasn't actually that bad. His foot's just... He's gone for the ball, but his foot's hit the ball and it's bounced up.
So this goes back to the question, does a footballer need to be in the VAR room when they're making decisions? Does an ex-pro? Do you think that will help?
I think it will help.
I'd like to think it will.
It'll help with that. Exactly what Bridgie's saying. In this, when you slow it down, it always. And I go back to when I played. I remember I won a penalty against Arsenal, Lauren, right? And I've just wriggled away, nicked it, and I've gone over. He's clipped me, right? But I swear to God, he got in my face. It was a bit of a thing. He got booked, penalty. And I'm like, you know, when you got up, I'm thinking, these will think I've dived. But I've definitely not dived.
I would put it past you.
I definitely not dived. And I was like going home, because the cameras weren't as good as they were back then. I was looking at it going, wow, that does look like I've dived.
You doubt yourself.
I'm doubting myself. I know I didn't. And there was this one angle where it was like, my whole foot, because I was running, I was just on my toes, and it just rolled my ankle like that, and he clipped me. But I was like, yes.
You know, it was like back when we were taking corners and stuff, there's always a little bit of pulling, a little bit of pushing. Like, now I'd just be like, no, you can't do none of that.
Can't do that.
And if I was a winger now, like, say if I was like when I used to come against Aaron Lennon or Sean or even you, if I was you guys, I'd be thinking, right, get at this fullback. Because you can get him sent off this game.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be so careful.
Yeah. There's nothing good. If you was playing winger and my fullback got a yellow card in the first 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, no.
Bomb on.
Yeah.
You know that affects the way that they play. Yeah.
Well, that is
a lot.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So when you do, because now you can't get away with anything in football. I just feel that there might need that footballer touch in there now.
I do. I think it's
just to help them like understand. Okay, that can happen in the game. And when we talk about what you're saying, you can't really get physical in the box as well, Bridgie. Like, I get it, because back in the day, people used to be having their arm around my whole waist and I'm trying to move away.
Yeah.
I swear one time someone had me in a headlock. Like, so it just shows you that it's more to do with just cleaning the game a little bit, because
the game's changed so much.
The game's changed. It is a different game to what we were playing back in the day, but I just feel that you don't know whether a dive is a dive, but you'll see from the player's reaction how it looks. Because if they just go on the floor and go like that and laugh, then I know he's definitely dived. It's the player reaction, and I think that's where the referees go off as well. They go on the players' reactions.
But with the shirt pull, you think Youngie would have maybe gone backwards a little bit. Instead, he's like flung himself forward. Like he's doing a belly flop in the ball.
That's why they say it's a dive.
By the way, but
that's why they say it's a dive.
It's a dive, but it's a penalty.
But it's a penalty because he's touched
pulled his shirt. I tell you, he was good for Everton though. Beto, he's been on fire.
Yeah, he has been. It was just.
Oh, he's been good.
Yeah.
Is it four or five goals?
If in 4 Premier League games.
You know, Geezer looked like he couldn't hit
Yeah, barn door.
And now
I've had that said about me before. So
But
I know that quote.
Doing well,
Again,
mate.
it goes back to
Confidence.
David Moyes has found a way to get into Beto's head that's given him the confidence.
It's good. He looks like a David Moyes player as well. He looks like David Moyes will love he loves a big, strong striker. Andy Carroll. Didn't have me. Sam Allardyce would have loved that type. It's that type of ilk manager.
Fellaini.
So he needs a Fellaini. You know what I mean? Those type of strikers, and you can see that he's gonna thrive. Thrive of a player like that in this team. You can just play off him. He's running. He's causing the two defenders mayhem. Like they're not having any rest. So Beto, I love this new lease of life, and he deserves it, man. Because you know sometimes with strikers, when it's just not working for you and you're just feeling low, and then when I'm gonna catch a break, you know what I mean? And we're at the bottom of the league, and these lot are expected. And on top of that, he's doing all the other things to be an all-rounded. We never knew he had this in the locker.
Nah, it shocked me because it's great.
It's like Mateta as well. Over at Palace.
Mateta, mate. He didn't look like a footballer, did he?
He looks like prime R9.
Yeah, I'm doing things. I'm like, wow. Obviously, Mateta doesn't aesthetically. I think his body shape is. Yeah. You know what I mean?
He's like a triangle.
Yeah. I'm like, he don't move. He gets a job done. He's a good footballer, and the manager's getting the best out of him. Just. Quickly going on to Moyes criticised the VAR decision, arguing the jersey pulling should be punished, while Ruben Amorim admitted his team didn't exist in the first half.
I don't know if they had a shot. I don't even know if they had a shot.
Ruben Amorim.
Why is he so harsh with his words on the team? Like, he's always saying something.
What can he say, though? It's been so bad. What can he actually say?
Didn't exist.
Didn't exist. Non-existent.
Oh, my God.
Man.
It's just bad there, isn't it, for him? Everything going on there.
Again, and we look. I feel like I'm the. I feel like I'm the bearer of bad news here with a couple of things like job cuts looming at Manchester United. Employees are bracing for another wave of job cuts with up to 200 positions, 250 staff, blah, 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 redundant, financial troubles, cost cutting. Now, the thing is, right,
15 million debt.
Yeah, listen.
With another 414 million owed for players' transfers.
Owed,
mate.
Wow. Why are they owing anybody? Manchester United.
They've got concerns over scouting and transfers. I could have told you that. My God, it's not going well, is it?
You don't need a big rundown on it there. But going back to like you know when you talk about the heart and soul of a club, right? And you think the FA relocating. What these big businesses will come in. They'll chop the fat off all the business. They'll look in and go, we can save there, we can save there, we can save there. Then they rebuild it up from that and try and make it workable, right? But there's no football people in the room or people from Manchester who go relocating the FA Youth Cup match to save $8,000. They probably spend $8,000 on baked beans in a month for the the FA Youth Cup is a prestigious. It's a rite of passage for a young footballer, And at Manchester United, you think back to the Busby Babes, and you think back to Fergie's fledglings and all them boys, the class of '92. They all started with FA Youth Cups, and it means so much in this country. And it's just similar to the Tottenham situation. Just have someone in the room who can speak to the people and tell them directly and say, no, listen, we can maybe cut here. I mean, what do you think?
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but they've just I think with the transfers and everything, and certain players they signed, and it's not worked out well for them. But there's been a lot of them, so it ain't helped for the situation at all, is it?
No, it's not helped.
It costs so much to sign a player now. The wages are massive. Yeah, you know what I mean, you can't. You've got to spend so much money to get a decent player these days.
I know,
unless your recruitment is that good. And obviously their recruitment don't seem to be.
Well, hasn't Anthony gone on loan to Betis and he's getting man of the matches and goals? And sometimes there's a structural thing at the club that's not working. And it's this thing as well.
No, but when you talk about that, job cuts though.
Yeah.
200 positions expected.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know how hard that is?
Do you reckon the players feel that?
The players must feel that. I remember.
I remember feeling
just the manager getting the sack, and I feel it.
Yeah.
Like you feel bad because it does come down to you at the end of the day and how you're performing, doesn't it?
I remember.
But they've already had 250 job cuts already.
Yeah, I don't know.
They've already had job cuts already.
Sir Alex
and the next job is 200 position to be expected to be eliminated too. So that's like Manchester United. Although it's a massive club, it's still the core is still a family club because of what they've been through with their history and everything. They're that's their life source.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Busby Babes, where they had to come from to get back on top. That whole story is amazing. Now it's a people's club. Yeah. Well, doesn't matter how big it is. It's still a people's club. Now, when you're chopping these, that's going to be it's nearly going to be 450 people that they're job cutting. And now these people are they're definitely local people. You're just ruining someone's livelihood. They love the club.
That's their identity as well.
That's your identity. Keep them in a job. It's not going to make a massive difference, I don't think, to whatever wage structure they want to imply.
How about you?
It happens at a lot of clubs, getting rid of people. Because I remember going back to Southampton and it was the parking attendant, people that worked in the ticket office, kit man that had been there years, the wash ladies. And I remember they'd all gone. None of them wanted to go.
Yeah.
They've all gone.
Well, I don't get...
I remember going back to West Ham a couple of years ago. All the same, a lot of the same faces there.
We really believe in it.
There. They love the club, love being there every weekend.
It's important, mate.
They make the club, don't they? As a player, you get to know all them and...
It's the identity. It's the identity. You get to know everyone, the secretary, everybody. And then if they want to leave, it will be on their own accord. Or they're just not doing a good job, so they get the tic-tac. But it ain't going to be because we're trying to save a little bit of money here and there. Because your job really is the most important ones. The smaller jobs are actually the things, that's the foundation of a football club. Smaller jobs, the little... If you're trying to get rid of that, then there's something really seriously wrong with your...
do you know what I would do?
Being a human.
Do you know what I'd do? Do you know what I'd do if I was manager? If I was Ruben Amorim, he probably ain't got time to do this. He's probably his head's on a swivel. He's spinning. He's got so many things going on at the moment. His team didn't exist in the first time.
Didn't exist, mate.
So, but like, you know what? I think at the bottom of it all, the culture of the club. You have to get the playing squad to go. Like, listen. See these people. See Betty in the cafeteria. Fred over his back. He's been here 30 years. He's done this. He's done that. Right. You're playing for yourselves. You're playing for us as a group. But you're playing for everyone around you. Do you know what I mean? We all doing this together. And you just got. Every time I've played in a successful team, we've played in successful teams. I've played in teams that are not successful, and it's always that togetherness that keeps you there. And I think these businesses, they don't understand, or maybe they do understand. They don't care. I don't know. But they're not doing the right thing. Just Tottenham and Manchester United, you know, and also I'd have to say a little bit Chelsea, because there's a protest going on at Chelsea on Tuesday night where the fans are unhappy with
certain things,
ticket prices and certain things in and around the club, but it needs to be addressed. It
does.
When you say togetherness, that stands out massively though, because when you look at United, you don't look at them and think they've got a togetherness, do you?
No.
And I think sometimes, when you brought Chelsea up, sometimes I've watched some of the games they play and I think they don't seem like they've got that togetherness and fight.
And that comes from that. That has
to come from the manager as well, making sure.
It comes from that comes from the manager, but it comes from what the environment is. So when you go into training every day, when you see all these regular people that you've always been accustomed to, they've introduced you to, and then you're just seeing them losing their jobs. That must be hard.
Yeah, it is.
That affects you.
It is,
because they make your life as a footballer comfortable.
I remember when we got relegated at West Ham, and I was captain. I was 21, and the 6 weeks leading up to it, we went on a run. We won 4 out of the last 6, and we nearly did it. We got 42 points. We got relegated, but I couldn't look people. I felt all of the weight on my shoulders.
Oh, it's horrible.
And I was like,
West Ham.
I knew people would lose jobs because you speak to people and you hear a little conversation going on. I was like, and it was like the worst 6 weeks of my life. And then when it finally happened, we got relegated. I was like, I couldn't even face any. The season was over, and I didn't want to leave my house cold. I was like, because I was living in Essex at the time. And because you take it on board, but
that's what happened when we went down with West Ham. I knew, because obviously what was going on, because I was friends with the kit man, friends with the than the lady, friends with the chef, and they would tell me exactly what's happening and who had to leave, and I'm like, this is the worst thing in the world, man. I didn't even know this. I didn't think that they would actually be cutting their jobs because of my failure.
Yeah.
It's not nice, man.
Yeah.
You know?
It's worse when you're in that team that's fighting for that relegation and you've got players that have got so much ability,
yeah, and
but they ain't got that fight. Yeah. They just don't bother. They haven't got that fight to run around and really put it in a fight.
Yeah. Don't care.
Which is what you need when you're down there.
And ultimately, like, if you could say to any young players listening to this, right, it's great. All the things you get out of football, the financial stuff, and, you know, the plaudits and everything. But the best thing I remember being in my career is when you just, like, that feeling of when you've won a game and you come back in the dressing room. There's nothing better than that.
Nothing better than that.
Do you know what I mean?
Elation.
Even when I was playing in teams that were struggling and we losing, there's that one win would keep you coming back for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what that means to everyone there.
Yeah.
But
Ferguson, on that note as well, a legend at Manchester United. I know we're talking about Manchester United, but they're going about their business. And probably some will say in the wrong way, some will say in the right way. Yeah, but Sir Alex Ferguson's ambassadorial contract, worth $2.5 million per year, will not be extended, highlighting the club's move away from its history and the era of its most successful manager. Nah, that is that's a statement.
That's a statement. I put that separately to the job cuts of the people. Separately, you've got to separate that because, for me, Sir Alex Ferguson is a legend of the game in Manchester United. But there comes a point where you can't be paying someone £2.5 million a year. The only way I can think of it is listen, he would leave Manchester United, he'll get speaking gigs and engagements, and he'll have a successful
still be around
career.
The club, surely.
Yeah, I think that's like hush money. That's no, because if Ferguson walks out of Old Trafford, right, and they don't give him anything,
he's got to have something. He'd be there. He'd still be there.
He's got to have something, but it's a lot of money, and if anyone deserves it, it's him because of what he's achieved. But there has to come a point where you have to walk away and go, right, like, thank you, enough's enough. Your money, you know, that I can understand that.
2.5 million a year.
2.5 million is a lot of money for an ambassador job.
Ambassadorial
like that?
role.
Ambassador at West Ham?
Oh, mate, full time.
Man would be rolling around with his...
I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here.
I'd take it, like.
The ambassador.
Yeah.
Bro, just the ambassador.
He'd still be around the club, wouldn't he? He just won't be doing as much, will he?
Mr. Ambassador. No, listen, I think it's even a job he'll do for free, man. Like, he loves the club, doesn't he? That's his heart and soul. You know what I mean? That's his heartbeat. That's his baby. You know,
everything there is just going to get analysed so much now because of the position they're in.
Yeah. And I think it's a travesty. That they're actually bringing it up.
Yeah.
That's a private conversation. Why are you worried? Why do we need to know how much he was on? That's Alex. He can have what he wants, what he's done for football in this game. So they just need to keep some of their movements just under low key. Someone's hating on them, and it's getting out. So just keep your ship tight and just make sure that these little things that you want to do don't get out, man. You just got to be better.
Before we finish, you're right, Coley. Bang on. Before we finish up, we'll just have a quick jolly up to the north of the border. Rangers have sacked their manager. I'm doing this for, you know, Philippe Clement struggled with consistency, significant points, blah, blah, blah. Mate, where do they go, Rangers, now? I mean, I'm going to throw a name in there.
No.
He's our guy, Ashley Cole. I'm going to throw him in because... Ashley, I know he's got a job, he's working in England under 21s, but why is Rangers, they had such a great spell with Stevie G, another ex-England legend. I can see Coley going into that job.
Yeah, Coley's he's up for it as well, isn't he?
Listen, I think he's...
You can see the dedication he's put into becoming a coach.
Yeah.
And
he's
someone's
life
got to
and
give
soul.
him a chance at some point.
Someone will give him a chance. You just got to apply, you know?
Yeah.
Like Wayne Rooney's had how many chances now?
Yeah.
He was a great player, obviously, one of the best, but also, like, he knows football.
Yeah, he does.
He always read the game well. He'd be able to help people all over.
Yeah. Mate, I worked with him.
And his communication's got better as well.
It has. And I worked with him doing a bit of media in a foreign country. And we had an afternoon off, and we're sitting on the sunbeds, lounges ordered a couple of drinks, like thinking this is a good gig, Coley. I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, right, I'm just watching the world go by.
Yeah.
90 degrees.
Yeah.
And he just gets out his laptop out and he's showing me throw-ins. I was like, the dedication. Honestly.
He gets the huddle out and
if someone's doing that
dedication
on a
to
holiday,
football,
then you know, like, they're
I'll
worth
just like,
in.
I'll have another Aperol Spritz.
What's he doing?
Mate.
Come on.
No.
Put the ball away, Ash. Listen, man.
He loves the game.
We love him.
I love him.
We're gonna get him on.
Yeah.
But I mean, that would be perfect for him. I just fitted like.
They might have chucked his name in the hat there,
Yeah,
Joe.
might as well. Listen, get this out
Might
there.
get a phone call tomorrow.
Ashley Cole to Rangers. Let's get the odds.
Let's get the odds. Get the prices down.
Let's get the prices down. Mate.
Quick move to Saudi before we go as well. Laurent Blanc's side secured a commanding 4-1 win in the Saudi Classico.
Yeah.
Moving 7 points clear at the top of the Saudi Pro League. And a late comeback saw Al Ettifaq defeat Cristiano Ronaldo's team 3-2 with Gerrans sent off.
I saw that. So Cristiano, right? Being Cristiano, what is he now? 40?
Mate,
he's 40 years old, 39, whatever he is. Yeah. He's still throwing strops.
Is he really?
So Duran,
we all hate losing.
Mate, I know, but bro, like you get to a certain age when it shouldn't really be. I've seen this before. Why am I still getting so involved emotionally when I see the ball and I blast it into Rose End, into the crowd? Like who does that? He's so angry with the referee. He goes, he just kicks the ball into the crowd. I'm like, bro, just come on, man. Like we've seen, you've done this before. Like you've been here before, have you? You're Cristiano. You're still doing that. Anyway, but he's just a winner, innit? Like he can't. And I think it was an unjust sending off.
Play swing ball with my kids. You know what I mean? It's like we all hate losing.
John Durant got sent off. Like obviously in the final minutes as well, because everything collapsed in the final minutes for him, and he just felt this is my one chance. That's why I love that guy. He's going to another league. Yeah. He's played. Listen, this guy's played every type of football in his life.
Yeah.
Top goal scorer in the world.
Yeah.
He's gone to Saudi League and he's like embracing the culture.
Yeah.
Still got that winning mentality. Yeah. And that's why I can't relate to him. Because I'm looking at him, I said, why are you so upset, bro? You're on 5 million a week.
I totally get your point.
Chill out, bro.
I get your point.
I think that's a lovely way to end it. Thank you for listening to The Dressing Room with Al Arabiya News, and we'll see you next week.
We go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Al Arabiya News.
It's very impressive.
Where knowledge meets perspective.
From the White House to Gaza, Kiev to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deepfake and artificial intelligence,
they've got to have a vote and a say.
It's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
my campaign is going very well.
Presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
Join me on The Riz Khan Show for empowering conversation.
Hello and welcome to Global News Today, bringing you exclusive interviews with leading experts every weekday here on Al Arabiya News. I'm Tom Burges Watson. Coming up on today's programme, The Kremlin hails what it views as a more balanced US stance on Ukraine. This as Washington twice sided with Moscow in Monday voting at the United Nations. Elon Musk, who's been tasked by President Trump with rooting out government waste, renews his threat to fire federal workers who do not comply with his demand to justify their jobs. And 1 month on from the presidential election in Belarus, we'll be speaking to exiled opposition leader Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, who regards Alexander Lukashenko's seventh straight election victory as a sham. Hello and welcome to the programme. Now, in what is seen as a dramatic shift in Washington's stance on the war in Ukraine, the US has sided twice with Russia in votes at the United Nations on Monday. All these votes mark the third anniversary of the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Well, in the first vote at the UN General Assembly, the US voted against a European-drafted resolution which condemned Moscow's invasion. Well, this means Washington voted in the same way as Russia, Belarus and North Korea. Then, at the UN Security Council, the UN voted its own resolution, which called for an end to the conflict, but which did not criticise Russia.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favour, 93, against 8, abstention 73. Draft resolution A/ES11/L11 as amended is adopted.
Well, the Kremlin has reacted, hailing what it called Washington's more balanced position. Well, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters he believes the new US stance will help resolve the war in Ukraine. He also noted that based on comments by European leaders, he hasn't sensed much balance from their side, but he hopes that will change after further contact between Europeans and Americans. Well, to discuss all of this further, we're joined now by Greg Swenson, who is the chair of Republicans Overseas UK, who joins us from London. Great to have you with us once again. Also, great to see back again Robert Fox, the defence editor for the Evening Standard newspaper, who also joins us from London. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us. As we just heard there, the United States has sided with Russia in two UN votes. Obviously, the Kremlin very pleased with this. We just saw there the Kremlin calling this Washington's more, quote, balanced position. This is a pretty seismic shift, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah, I think to a certain degree it is. But I think the U.S. has really ceased to take seriously whatever the UN says, whether it's these security resolutions or any sort of multilateral announcements or pronouncements. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I think a lot of the critics of it are up in arms. But on the other hand, this is just a bit of realpolitik. I mean, the war is in a stalemate right now. President Trump is trying to negotiate a ceasefire and a truce or perhaps a permanent settlement. And I don't think that UN resolutions are going to affect that either way.
OK, Rob, let me pick up on that with you. No big deal? Or would you say that the transatlantic alliance has been upended?
Well, I'd like to go midway between it. I think it's slightly more than no big deal. It's an indicator of the way things are going. Things are moving quite fast in Europe on the back of the Macron visit to the White House, the rather surprisingly dramatic announcement by Sir Keir Starmer in the House of Commons today, and there's going to be an unveiling throughout the day of a security plan long overdue, a national security strategy in the present context for the UK. And I think it's quite useful because I think it rehearses what is going to come in the end of June at the NATO summit in the Netherlands, where there really will be a sorting out of the future of the alliance, where, of course, there will be looser ties with America. America is absolutely essential to NATO because it was at the heart of the conception of NATO. There may be different alliances or different variants of it, but I think that's the way that they're going. But I think that what allies of America, and not just in Europe, I mean, it's very interesting what the Asian allies will be saying. It's to try and make out the real sense of direction of the Trump of the Trump presidency. It looks as if it's hegemonistic, sovereigntist, which I think is it could raise a lot of problems in what's coming up.
Yeah, and Rob, just to stay with you for a moment, I mean, in that UN General Assembly vote, the United States was on the same side as Belarus, North Korea, and Sudan. I mean, you don't think that's somewhat alarming?
Well, you do judge people by the company they keep, don't they? Don't you? It is very strange to have ended up with that. That not one of those three has a very powerful democratic credential. Let me put it like that. I think it's they're very much part of the deal, and I think, as we heard in your introduction, is that Trump really hopes that he can make a deal which will be to the benefit of the US with this. And I think even an armistice, a freezing on the current lines in Ukraine is quite a way off, and it's going to be quite a tricky one to do. Washington clearly thinks that it could do a deal with Moscow, and Moscow is responding, it must be said. Very interesting to see which way Putin is moving, particularly on the back of the Riyadh meeting. Will join the dots and was talking about perhaps he can get together with Washington on joint ventures for exploiting minerals and strategic natural assets in Russia with American input, but also the great prizes. And this did emerge very strongly, actually, in the background at Riyadh is the Arctic, and they want a deal there. It's looking a bit like what happened at the end of the 15th century with the line of Tordesillas, known as the Alexandrine Line, where they believed they could carve the new world between Portugal and Spain. Can you carve the old world between the US and Russia? It looks that that's the way it's going, that there are three superpowers or near superpowers involved in this: Russia, China, and Trump America. And Trump America doesn't have much time for most of its allies.
Greg, I can tell from the look on your face you quite like that comparison of us looking like we were where we were in the 15th century. Was there something you wanted to say? Yeah, it's just an interesting historical perspective that the British have a great understanding of that. I think more so than the Americans, because we only look back 250 years. But I do think that, and Robert brings up a great point, it is strange, but President Trump is provocative. He's different. He doesn't do things the old way, and the old way has failed. And I think that's what's really important here. The neocons in America have failed at defeating Russia. You saw it even in the last 3 years. The incrementalist, the drip feeding of support from President Biden, and he would always argue that he didn't want to escalate, but he was really the champion of appeasement in his 4 years. And if you look back at Trump 1.0, it's interesting that he was much more hostile to Putin and to Russia than the Obama-Biden administration was after the invasion of Crimea, and also much more aggressive than Joe Biden was, especially in the first 2 years. But even after Russia invaded Ukraine, you saw a real slow drip feed. And in many ways, it was really a strategy of stalemate. To start with rifles and rounds, and then ultimately agree to Abrams tanks, and later agree to F-16s, not before stopping some of our allies from delivering F-16s to Ukraine, and then stopping the training, stopping the permissions, the tech, in addition to weapons. So
I think in retrospect, we can't turn back the clock. We all wish we could to February of 2022. I'm with President Trump on that. I don't think this would have happened if it was on his watch. He was sending Javelin missiles to Ukraine, after Obama and Biden were only sending non-lethal weapons or non-lethal materials to Ukraine, and not even sending it directly to Kyiv. They were shipping it to a U.S. airbase in Poland and then trucking it on commercial trucks. Trump put sanctions on Nord Stream 2. Of course, Biden relieved those sanctions as soon as he could when he took office. So, I think that, we all wish that deterrence would have worked. I think it could have worked if Trump was still president in 21 and 22. But that ship has sailed, and we sort of have to deal with reality right now. And that's why I think Trump just wants to, get to a ceasefire, stop the killing. The stalemate's not working for anybody, especially not Ukraine.
Rob, I've been looking at your face there as Greg was talking. You seem to be mostly nodding. Do I take that as meaning that you agree largely with what was just said?
Well, I must say, Greg, there's a synergy of thought going on here. I hadn't expected it, but the way we think about this, I suspect is very, very similar indeed. And can I say, you put it crystal clear. You're absolutely right. Deterrence in any terms absolutely failed, because the failure has been, and it's been steady since Putin gave us warning, ominously, was at a Munich Security Conference in 2007 or 2008, I think it was 2007, where he laid out his vision. And then NATO went ahead. Sorry, I don't want to go too long in the anecdotage, but NATO made a terrible mistake the following year. And both our countries are to blame for it. At the Bucharest NATO summit, they said the aspiration of Georgia and Ukraine to join NATO should be realized. Could be. They didn't give a timetable, I admit, but, the Secretary of State and the Foreign Secretary, David Miliband, at that time said that, and they had no route map. They had no conception of consulting with Russia and what it might be. And in fact, the poison was in the well at that point. And I think that the real worry, and I'd be very interested in Greg's take on this, having had the Atlantic Council where Russia could meet with NATO, and in the 1990s did so quite enthusiastically in their terms. They came to NATO meetings and so on, and then it just drifted out. And I agree, from 2014 on, the Maidan upheaval and then Crimea, the lack of engagement has been spectacular. And that is the big thing. And that is where one does hand it to the Trump 2 administration. You've got to engage with Moscow.
Yeah, it looks as though you both absolutely agree on that one. And I was going to ask
You've got a rotten programme, I'm afraid.
Not much of a debate, more of a agreement on this. And obviously when Donald Trump said, we're making a decisive break with traditional US foreign policy, which he described as very foolish. It sounds like you both agree with that as well. How do you think President Zelensky has played his cards the last week or so? Greg?
Yeah, look, I think Putin wants an off-ramp. He just can't admit it, right? He's not the type that would admit that. I think he's probably worried about the long-term effects of the war on his country, on the people, on the economy. And so this is probably a welcome off-ramp. And, President Trump's strategy is not that different than, Gerhard Schroeder, Angela Merkel, even Obama and Biden, who, were afraid of provoking, didn't really want to spend too much on defense and security, obviously in the case of all four of them, and would rather do business. And it ended up being, Germany ended up being completely dependent on Russia for oil and natural gas. Obama and Biden were just kicking the can down the road, cutting defense spending at every turn. President Trump increased defense spending dramatically. So his deterrence was working, again, with the sanctions on Nord Stream, with the lethal weapons. And then Biden just, turned around, cut defense spending 3 years in a row by 3%. The U.S. is still half of NATO in terms of defense and security spending. And we're cutting 3% a year. That was really dangerous. So if if the Europeans who are now flexing their muscles and saying, we want to fight, we want to defend Ukraine, well, why are you spending under 2% of your GDP on defense and security? It makes no sense.
Okay, Greg, you've managed not to address the issue of President Zelensky, which was the thrust of my question. I just wanted to know what you think of how he's played his cards the last few days, because we have seen quite a bit of friction, a bit of a war of words going on between Kyiv and Washington. I'd like to get your take on that.
Yeah, no, sorry. I thought you were talking about Putin. But yeah, Zelensky, look, he was very cooperative at first, when Trump had won the election, maybe right before the inauguration, right after. And then he got into a little heat last week. I think that was a mistake. But he's looking for an off-ramp, too. And I think the fact that he conceded over the weekend that he'd be happy to resign if there was a satisfactory resolution, I think is a great sign. We're never going to get that from Putin, obviously. But, I think that was a step in the right direction. Last week, when he had a little spat with Scott Bessent and the Secretary of Treasury and with Trump himself, I thought that was a mistake because he was negotiating and he ended up cooperating in terms of the potential partnership on rare earth elements and critical minerals will be great for Ukraine, not just great for the U.S.
So let me turn back to you, Robert, because you're mentioning there the Macron visit to Washington. I'd like to get your take on how you thought he got on in his discussions with President Trump and whether you thought he was listened to. And another point, just an extension of that, President Macron told Fox News that he thinks that a truce is possible in a matter of weeks. I just wondered if you agree with that.
I think, again, one is likely, but how permanent it's going to be, how frozen, how semi-Freddo it might be, which is my expression for these kinds of wars we're seeing now. Now you see them frozen, now they seem to be melting rather unexpectedly. We've seen that in the Caucasus, after all, and indeed to an extent in Syria. Macron, to answer your question, I mean, let's lighten the load a bit here. They are brilliant at theatre, all these three that we've mentioned. The rather stolid, even stodgy Sir Keir Starmer isn't so good at it. Zelensky is a performer and has been doing it brilliantly. I was just watching the body language. He is exhausted, but his body language at his press conference said, well, of course, I could step down were you to guarantee NATO membership and things like that, which he knew wasn't going to come. It was absolutely classic, like the great conjurer, misdirection. Macron, as we know, Jupiter, is also a great performer. And what he is wondering about is where this takes Europe. Because actually but Trump has done him a great favour. Since we're invoking history, it's appealed to the little corporal in him. It's appealed to the Napoleon in Macron, because Macron is quite clearly on mainland Europe the leader now. He is the voice, because look where Merz is now just newly elected. Is he going to be chancellor in the terms in which he wanted to be? We have Ursula von der Leyen, and we have the feisty ladies behind her in the EU, but they're not leading Europe. And this is where Macron is actually talking, I think, behind the scenes quite seriously with Trump, and is where does the alliance sit? We know America can't have Europe as its priority now. Where do we fit with you? And this is where I think both Britain and France have a peculiarly strong role. They say, yeah, we'd like you to be a backstop in Europe still, if you can manage it, and we will help you out in the Pacific and that region, which is very, very hot. Now, I'm sorry to say, Greg, we're speaking from the UK. That change of emphasis and why it is so important to America in view of what is going on, not only with China, but elsewhere in the region, is not getting the coverage. It's not getting the mileage. It's not getting the airspace it deserves, particularly here in the UK, where it jolly well should.
Well, perhaps it will, because, Greg, as we've been saying, the British Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, will go to the White House on Thursday. Analysts seem to think Macron did a reasonably good job at getting his points across to President Trump. Don't know if you agree with that. But Prime Minister Starmer says he's going to show up with this new pledge of increasing defence spending that we were just talking about there. Can he act as an effective bridge, do you think, between Europe and the United States?
I think he could. It's a great opportunity for him. When I say I think he could, I don't think he necessarily will, but it would be an opportunity squandered if he doesn't. Stepping up to defense spending, you never would have expected that from Keir Starmer or Labour. Perhaps he's being forced into it, but I do think it's important for the UK. It's completely inadequate to be at 2.3%. Just like I said, it's inadequate for the US to be at 3%. So if the silver lining of this whole debacle in Ukraine over the last 3 years is that the Europeans step up and decide to take defense and security seriously, not only does it help the U.S. in the Pacific, which is really important, Robert, great point, but also the last thing we want is Russia to be aligned or dependent on the Chinese. And that's where we started to see in early 2022, when Russia was isolated from the rest of the world and leaned toward China. So in spite of this UN resolution, which President Trump probably doesn't care about, he doesn't care about multilats at all. He's really good in these bilateral meetings like he just had with Macron, and I think we'll see more of the same on Thursday. The last thing I'll mention is if Keir Starmer kicks off the conversation with the King's invitation for a state visit, first time ever that a president has had 2 state visits, that will be a great way to break the ice, I would argue.
OK, so perhaps he'll go well armed. I'll come to you in just a moment, Robert. I just want to ask you lastly, Greg, though. We heard from the former British Prime Minister, the former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, saying when Donald Trump says something that sounds a bit outlandish, everyone panics and tries to decrypt it. But there's a method here, which is some sort of, shock tactic to get people motivated, get people into action, a sort of electric shock therapy. Sounds like you agree, based on what you were just saying, with that assessment. And it works. Yeah, and it's worked. You saw it with the president of Colombia. It took him 30 minutes and 2 holes on a golf course, and the president of Colombia reversed course on taking the illegal migrant criminals back to Colombia. And there's many other examples of it. I know it's uncomfortable for the diplomatic world and many others in the European circuit here, but I think that's just his style, and it seems to work most of the time. And so I would expect it to work again here, much like the former Prime Minister said. OK, Robert, just coming to you before we wrap up, and if there's any points you want to raise in your...
Look, come on, it's not even an elephant in the room. It's so serious, and it's very important, and it's why Macron and Starmer are so important to America and its nuclear. And in fact, as we know, and I agree with Greg, the thing is that the old diplomatic way, and we've heard them chuntering on, even after the Starmer announcement, oh, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. That is arteriosclerotic. Britain and America and Australia are in this AUKUS agreement. And again, it's very difficult to get public traction and even media traction on why this is important. And it will go through many iterations and variations, but it is for real. It's something that really will stick. And by the way, I think that that's where Britain and France will have to lead Europe, and it is because of their nuclear cooperation, which is thinner, of course, than with America, but it's so important. Because one of the things that we're missing, and it is very, very difficult to get your head around in its new format, we're in another nuclear arms race. Welcome, Dr. Strangelove.
OK, well, you have had the last word. Thank you very much indeed to you, Robert Fox, defence editor for the Evening Standard newspaper. And thanks as well to Greg Swenson, chair of Republicans Overseas UK. Thank you very much indeed to you both. Well, stay with us. In just a moment, we'll be talking about President Donald Trump's desire to see federal employees justify their jobs, and he's giving his support to Elon Musk's demand that they send an email saying exactly what they do. That's right after this.
At Al Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property, The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Al Arabiya News,
It's very impressive.
where knowledge meets perspective.
Berlin. For its exuberant urban life and vibrant art scene, visit Berlin. The German capital features a cultural scene and unique lifestyle that's both fast-paced and relaxed. Also known as the hipster city of Europe, Berlin keeps alive with its alternative cultures and styles. In neighborhoods like Kreuzberg, Neukölln, and Friedrichshain are vibrant places where locals simply chill and enjoy the relaxed open spaces and fresh air. No city in Germany is, in fact, greener than Berlin, with its forests, lakes, and sprawling parks. Berlin is also a city full of history. The World War II, after all, began and ended in the city of Berlin. Most popular are the Brandenburg Gate and the Federal Chancellery, which are reflective of the nation's rich stories. Germany's capital is also home to its major government buildings, such as the historic Reichstag or the seat of the German parliament. Of course, most remarkable are the Berlin Wall, the East Side Gallery, and the Holocaust Memorial. Historical feats aside, Berlin is also hip and happening with its streets of bars and clubs. The city has an active nightlife that guarantees massive parties and events practically every night. But the city is friendly to non-party goers too. It has relaxed beer gardens, small bars, hostels, and art galleries to suit different tastes. Famous as a city of art, Berlin has over 170 museums, including the famous Museum Island that puts treasures of the world on public display. Tourists often visit Berlin to attend ballets and operas at the city's major opera houses, as well as witness live performances by talented orchestras such as the world-class Berlin Philharmonic. And when it comes to food, Berlin has a lot to offer too. It's a great place for vegans. It has Turkish restaurants and supermarkets everywhere, and Italian, Mexican, and Asian food spots too. Food markets offering snacks, German wine and cheese, among others, will satisfy your palate as well. The neighborhoods in Kreuzberg and Neukölln are great for finding fine restaurants and quiet lounge bars, as well as dozens of coffee bars to enjoy. When it comes to shopping, there are well-known mainstream malls to visit, alongside independent boutiques nearby that offer endless choices for your lifestyle needs. One will also find small vintage stores within Berlin, some even selling second-hand books as well as high-end designer clothing.
From the White House to Gaza, Kiev to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deepfake and artificial intelligence,
They've got to have a vote and a say.
it's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
Join me on The Riz Khan Show for empowering conversation.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, President Donald Trump says he supports Elon Musk's demand that federal employees explain their recent accomplishments or risk losing their jobs. Well, Musk's email instructed workers to reply with 5 examples of what they'd done during the past 7 days. Well, Musk, who leads the Department of Government Efficiency, has warned that failure to respond to his email will be taken as a resignation. But his approach has fueled a backlash, with unions and activist groups filing a lawsuit to halt the email mandate. Well, President Trump has weighed in, insinuating that the government might have ghost workers.
He wanted to know what you did this week. You know why he wanted that, by the way? I thought it was great. Because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows that they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. They're trying to, that's how badly various parts of our government were run by, and especially by this last group. We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump says he supports Elon Musk's demand that federal employees explain their recent accomplishments or risk losing their jobs. Well, Musk's email instructed workers to reply with 5 examples of what they'd done during the preceding 7 days. Well, Musk, who leads the Department of Government Efficiency, has warned that failure to respond to his email will be taken as a resignation. But his approach has fueled a backlash, with unions and activist groups filing a lawsuit to halt the email mandate. Well, President Trump has weighed in, insinuating that the government might have ghost workers.
He wanted to know what you did this week. You know why he wanted that, by the way? I thought it was great. Because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows that they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. They're trying to, that's how badly various parts of our government were run by, and especially by this last group. We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far.
President Donald Trump speaking there. Well, for more analysis, we can speak now to Florida Republican Executive Committee woman Angie Wong. Angie, great to have you with us here once again on Al Arabiya News. Elon Musk has sent out this email telling federal employees, tell me what you did last week. Just talk us through what you think the thinking here is.
Well, anytime a company takes over another company in a merger or an acquisition, you go through an audit. And that's exactly how Donald Trump and Elon Musk are going about their approach. They have just received a broken U.S. economy as well as a broken administration, and they're trying to fix it. So the first thing Elon Musk is going to go and do, as any sensible person would do, any CPA, which is a certified public accountant, would do, is to go and do a line audit. And what we are finding in this process is a lot of wastage, a lot of federal employees who don't exactly work, and they're saying, well, what's going on here? So I don't think this is a bad request to say, well, what exactly are your job duties? Because any HR person would go and ask those very questions. So why there's so much pushback by Democrats and other federal employees, it's actually kind of strange to me. It's a simple question in an email that Elon Musk has asked. List the 5 things that you've done this week. Most employees can fill that out. That's not a hard question. I had just heard this morning that Elon Musk has given a second email in response to the first batch that came in, which only a certain percentage of people had responded to. These are 3 million federal workers, right? And we know that we're trying to cut costs. In fact, he has a mandate to try to find and cut $2 trillion from the federal budget. So all of this is just processes. And I hope that federal workers will comply.
Yeah, you used the analogy of an auditor there. We spoke to Elon Musk's father yesterday, and he told us that his son is worse than an auditor, and he doesn't miss anything. So he sounds pretty tough. Just talking about the numbers here. So between 2.3 and 3 million federal workers, we understand. Back in the 1950s, that represented about 4% of the total workforce. But today, that represents about 1.4% of the total workforce, which is actually a historic low. So is this really such a serious problem?
Well, it is if you're trying to find ways of cutting the budget. Look, the ultimate goal here is for Trump to have less taxes for American taxpayers, if not zero taxes. I think that's what he really wants to achieve. Whether or not that's going to happen within 4 years, Donald Trump at this point, it seems as though he can do anything, especially with Elon Musk's help. They have already in just 30 days found lots of cost-cutting measures. Now, the biggest measure in any company or government is usually going to be your personnel. So from what I've understood, they have already notified 30,000 federal employees that there's going to be layoffs. And now, so the first cut has already been done, or at least it's in the process of being cut. And Donald Trump has offered a severance package, I believe, of 8 months of pay, which just seems pretty good. A lot of people are voluntarily resigning. But then the next round is going to be a little bit harder. Now, HR is trying to decide, or rather DOGE, which has become the human resource department for the government, they're trying to decide, well, where else can we cut? What do you do exactly? And one of the mandates is, well, you have to return to an on-site office to do your work. You can no longer just be at home in your pajamas pretending to work. So that has, gotten a lot of people kind of uproar. And it's really strange because now we're seeing the kind of the echo and the effects, the ripple effects of DOGE. I just heard the Miami mayor announce this morning, that she is demanding for employees to go back in office on site to work in the Miami offices again. And this is the local workers. So you're starting to see governments doing this. It's pretty incredible how many people we were not monitoring. And, maybe they were being managed on some level. But for the most part, a lot of people just never showed up and collected a check.
OK, but isn't there a bit of concern in the US that this sort of slash and burn approach is actually going to translate into higher unemployment figures? That's not going to look too good, is it?
No, of course not. And again, I think there's going to be some of that. Whenever you go and do a hard audit like that, yeah, it's going to lay off some people. But that's OK, because I think it was time, because there was a lot of fat in the government. If you ask any ordinary worker today, they're looking at their paycheck every month and they're saying, well, I just gave away 50% of my paycheck, but to whom and for what? And we found that a lot of money was going overseas to various extraneous programs that a lot of American workers do not support. So now we're hoping to bring that number down from 50% of my pay cut, or my paycheck rather, to maybe 10% or maybe less than that. So, I mean, all these things are good things for Americans ultimately, and employment, even though the numbers might look like they're going down temporarily, all Americans get to benefit from a lower tax rate. So I think that is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I mean, unemployment is only around 4% in the United States. So in fact, this administration has inherited at least a reasonable situation when it comes to joblessness. But when it comes to, all of that collective experience in these federal departments, and we're talking about hundreds of years worth of collective experience, is there a bit of worry that perhaps he's going a bit far here?
A bit far. Well, we haven't done enough for the American people in decades. So you do need a disruptor like a Donald Trump, like an Elon Musk to come in. And it's going to hurt for a while. I will tell you one thing about egg prices here in the U.S. It's almost $1 an egg now, right? If not more, depending on where you shop. And it's going to hurt. We're going to feel the effects because you're going through a transition period where now Americans will have to manufacture more because we've cut off a lot of the trade deals. And we've also tariffed a lot of the countries bringing in our goods. You're going to see that in temporary employment as well. You're going to see a lot of these transitional kind of painful moments, but it's only temporary because at the other end of it, you're going to start seeing the benefits of it. And I think that's going to come faster than we can imagine. You have two titans here running the country, which I'm very proud of.
OK, just going back to this email instruction. So people have been told if you don't reply to the email setting out what you've achieved, then that'll be taken as a resignation. Some federal workers have been told by their seniors, oh, you can just ignore the email. Don't worry about it. You don't have to reply. it's difficult to understand what's going on here. Is this voluntary or isn't it? What's your understanding?
My understanding is the very first email went out to all federal workers to just say, well, what is it that you do? And for senior management, their bosses, to say, well, you don't have to really comply to it. There's really no laws here. In fact, it's better off that you don't write in. Well, that is very, very suspect to me, because one of the things that I think is happening is that you're going to have a team who have, you know, they work on the same team, but they have very different answers and very different duties, and they may not calculate or rather correlate. And maybe it's going to be discovered that there's some management problems. And maybe that's why the managers are asking them not to fill out these forms. As of today, Elon Musk has sent out a second email, which I take to be a second warning. If you haven't already replied to the very first email request, well, here's number 2. And if you don't reply to that, you may be let go. That is exactly how human resources work, right? You have essentially your boss, your top boss, the president, asking you to tell us what you do and whether or not you should keep your job. I don't think that is a hard ask at all. I think that is a very basic management skill, and it's definitely worth replying. So if you don't reply, it's very likely that these employees will let go and let in new patriots and new Americans who want to work in those jobs, who are excited about this administration. Let them get those jobs.
Do you think a bit of it boils down to resentment that Elon Musk is, he's not an American, and he has not had approval from the US Senate to be in the position he's in, prompting people to raise questions about his authority? Do you think there is an element of that in the response to this instruction?
Well, they're trying to push the message that he's not American. I believe he has been naturalized. He is a great American. We see him every single day working nonstop. And this is a billionaire, one of the richest men in the world, who is working nonstop for his country and sleeping in a sleeping bag. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And you have to remember that most bureaucrats are not elected, and they're not even selected in an appointment scenario. He is asked to work as an auditor for this country and to find out what is going on here. Now, I don't know of anyone else better suited to do this job. I mean, there's only a couple of people who have run large companies who even know how to do this, right? So I think he's doing a fantastic job. It's a thankless job. Even this morning, we were seeing threats on his life being put out by all over a lot of blue cities. It is ultimately, he's not getting paid a government salary. He's doing this because he really cares about cleaning up this mess once and for all. And hopefully after 4 years' time, we're going to leave this country in a better off place.
Do you think he has to cool it, as his dad said to us yesterday, perhaps, appearing on a stage with a chainsaw, casting himself as the Doge Father with, loud, heavy metal music playing in the background and, slashing jobs? I mean, these are people with livelihoods, with bills to pay, with, households to feed. I mean, the optics matter, don't they?
The optics do matter. And Tom, you know this, politics is entertainment. It's certainly with this administration, where most of the administration comes with a TV background, right? So with Elon Musk coming on stage, in full theatrics, you know what it's doing? It's exciting Americans. And that is one of the things that we lacked so desperately with the last administration, where we were just all sleeping. We weren't paying attention because it was boring. Now you have an exciting, young, energetic administration coming in. They're going to be slashing prices. They're going to be slashing your taxes. They're going to be bringing back and putting money into Americans' pockets. I mean, we're excited and we should be celebrating. So if there are fireworks on stage and Elon Musk jumping up and down, I'm okay with that, because that to me is the new young energy that we've been craving for the last 4 years.
Just lastly, Angie, I mean, we talked some weeks ago about some of the nominees for the Trump administration. You were spot on with one or two of them, saying you weren't comfortable with them. Sure enough, they weren't named. I want to get your prediction on something else now. I mean, a lot of people suggesting that, you know, with two strong characters like Donald Trump and Elon Musk pretty much at the helm of the United States as a duo, do you think there's some scope here for some sparks? Do you reckon it's a matter of time before they have a bit of a falling out? What do you think?
Well, you know, I think they actually complement each other very well, Donald Trump and Elon Musk. You have Donald Trump, who's doing a lot of the international dealings right now. You had Macron, who just visited, and, you know, the Japanese prime minister, et cetera, and also Bibi Netanyahu. So he's doing a lot of the world stage stuff, whereas Elon Musk is the workhorse, right? He is literally going line by line, or rather his team is going line by line, making sure that Americans are not paying for, you know, products and, you know, budgets of other countries. We just saw a line item for Thai healthcare and Mali's education. Well, why are we paying for their domestic, you know, line items? Why are Americans doing that? And those are kind of larger discussions to have. But, you know, I'm glad someone's doing it, because we were just taking on a lot of various countries' own budgets, and Americans did not know that. I just found that out, and I was like, I'm glad someone is doing a proper audit. So we'll see what that comes with. I don't think that these two men are really going to fight or have a falling out. I really think that they complement each other. They work well together, and they don't really cross paths all that much, other than, you know, on messaging. So far, it seems like they are both in agreement, and, you know, they seem like they're really, really good for the country. As I've said before, with Donald Trump, there's always trouble around the corner. The media is certainly trying to find that. I don't think they're going to find it with this dream team.
All right. Well, thank you very much indeed. Florida Republican Executive Committee woman Angie Wong, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Now, according to the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Belarus has been flagged as a potential launch pad for a future attack on Ukraine. Well, he raised the alarm at the Munich Security Conference last week. Well, President Zelensky stated that Russia is preparing 15 divisions with between 100 and 150,000 troops being trained to escalate tensions along the Belarus border. Well, he also warned that Russia may not only target Ukraine, but could also attack Poland or other Baltic countries. Well, Zelensky expressed concern over how the US would respond to such developments. Well, Zelensky's comments followed the ratification of a treaty by Russian lawmakers last week, offering security guarantees to Belarus, including the potential use of Russia's nuclear weapons to repel any aggression. Well, speaking to the State Duma, the Russian Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Alexander Grushko, emphasized that the treaty has a defensive nature and is not directed against any other countries or alliances such as NATO.
The treaty has a defensive nature and is not directed against any other countries or alliances. Its creation is motivated by the need to strengthen stability and security against the increasing fragility and unpredictability of the situation in the military field on the western borders of our union state. The main purpose of the treaty is to consolidate the common defense and security framework of the union state, as well as to send a clear signal to the external circuit in order to deter aggressive intentions of NATO countries against Russia and Belarus.
Well, today we're going to be speaking to Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, who is a former teacher who, with no political experience, ran against the Belarusian president, Alexander Lukashenko, in the 2020 presidential election. Well, after Lukashenko, who has ruled Belarus for more than 30 years, claimed victory with more than 80% of the vote, Tsikhanouskaya fled to Lithuania with her 2 children. Well, her departure followed massive protests, with many opposition groups believing that she was the true winner. Well, in 2023, a Belarusian court sentenced her in absentia to 15 years in prison on charges of high treason and conspiracy to seize power. Well, let's get more now. We can speak to Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, an exiled Belarusian politician, leader of the Democratic Forces of Belarus and former 2020 presidential candidate. Thank you so much for being with us, Svetlana. Just so that our audience understands, you're joining us from Lithuania, and I'm assuming that's because if you were in Belarus, you wouldn't be safe. Tell us why that is.
You know, when back in 2020, I was a presidential candidate, and according to all votes accounting, I won elections. KGB forced me to leave the country. And they thought if the leader is in exile, so all the uprising, resistance will stop. But it wasn't our case, because several months in a row, uprising demonstrations on the people of Belarus continued. Just they demanded Lukashenko to leave. So for this almost 5 years already in exile, Lukashenko's regime started a trial against me. I was sentenced for 15 years in absentia, and of course I can't return home because I will be immediately jailed.
Okay, and of course, two of the key opposition figures there in Belarus in the 2020 election were jailed. We're talking here about Viktor Babariko and Sergei Tikhanovsky, and he is in fact your husband. And I just want to ask you whether you imagined that you would one day become this figurehead of the opposition in Belarus, or did it happen by accident?
Absolutely. I never intended to go into politics, and I call myself an accidental politician. Because when my husband, Sergei Tikhanovsky, announced he would run against dictator Lukashenko, he was arrested immediately. And I stood in his place, not because I wanted to be a politician, but because someone had to continue the fight my husband started. And actually, my story is not unique, because it's the story of every Belarusian who stood up against regime and chose freedom over fear. Belarusians don't want to live under dictatorship. We don't want to live under Russia either. And we want just to be a normal democratic European nation. And this is what we are fighting for till now.
Okay, and you've had the same leader since 1994, so that's more than 30 years now. Alexander Lukashenko has won 7 elections in a row. And what does that do? What does that mean for the opposition? What's left of the opposition?
So first of all, let me correct you, because at least 2 last so-called elections, Lukashenko didn't win, because all these elections were falsified, and elections 2020 and this farce of 2025 wasn't recognized as real elections, no by Belarusian people, no by international community. But of course, for these years of Lukashenko's governing, and after 2020, when he seized power in the country, he managed to make from Belarus like Gulag. People live like in Stalin's time, repressions. People live in constant fear, because every day people are detained for their anti-regime or anti-war or pro-Ukrainian position. And Lukashenko has only one instrument, is tyranny and terror against Belarusian people. For these 5 years, he dragged our country into the war against our neighbors, Ukrainians, against the will of Belarusian people, and he is selling our country to Russia piece by piece. There is a process of Russification in Belarus. So actually, Lukashenko is selling our independence and selling our sovereignty to Russia. He's ready to sacrifice everything Belarusian to stay in power. Lukashenko is backed up by Putin, because Putin needs Belarus to be launching pad for attacking Ukraine and for future possible attacks on our other neighbors, and they are like allies. But Belarusians, despite all these repressions, despite all this terror and everyday detentions, people continue to fight on the ground and in exile.
Okay, so in the latest elections that were held in Belarus, how did people who oppose Lukashenko vote? Did they vote at all? Did they abstain? Were there other candidates? How did it work?
May I underline once again that what this event that was organized by Lukashenko has nothing in common with democratic processes. It's a ritual. We call it special electoral operation. It just, Lukashenko's circus of reappointment by dictator, new dictator. So that it is. But of course, people of Belarus, they wanted to show somehow, attitude to this. And when they were at polling stations, if the regime forced them to go to polling stations, they put this tick against everybody. We understand that nobody counted the ballots. Nobody was interested in people's opinion, but people need, this step. But in 2020, people went to the streets to defend their voices, defend their votes, and they were harshly repressed. 5 years in a row, people are detained every day for their anti-regime position. This year, I didn't call people to go to the streets, didn't want people to sacrifice themselves in vain. I asked people to keep their energy, to keep their, desire to fight for the real moment of opportunity. This imitation of elections doesn't change anything for Belarus. Lukashenko remains be ally of Putin. He continues to provide Belarusian territory and the infrastructure for Russia. So I really want to believe that very soon the new window of opportunity will be opened for Belarus, and then we will see Belarusians with their voices on the streets, and everywhere.
Of course, Belarus has been under heavy sanctions by the West for a number of years now. I'm just wondering how damaging they've been for Belarus and how much pressure, therefore, they've translated into for the leadership there in Belarus.
So first of all, when we talk about sanctions, I see how our partners distinguish Belarusian regime and Belarusian people. And of course, we urge our democratic allies to put very targeted sanctions that would harm Lukashenko's oligarchs and Lukashenko's regime. So we don't want people to be harmed. We want people to give more opportunities, to travel, to see how democracy looks like, not to ban Belarusian, but to ban Belarusian regime. So we don't actually see that level of life of Belarusians is worsening. But what we see for sure that funds, for Lukashenko's pockets is decreasing, and this is the target. So they stopped get money for selling potash or for for different transactions, and it's very important that the regime is punished for militarizing our economy. They now producing tons and tons of military products for Russian army, and of course they have to be punished for this.
Okay, in terms of the sanctions that have targeted Lukashenko and his inner circle, I mean, are there any signs that they've had the desired effect? Because we have heard about these presidential pardons for some people involved in the protests of 2020. And I'm just wondering whether perhaps this is a sign that the leadership there in Minsk is trying to reach out to Washington, reach out to the West, presumably because they're feeling the effects of the sanctions. What are your thoughts?
So my thoughts is that sanctions do work. Pressure does work. And the fact that people are being released, from Lukashenko's prisons, it's not just merit of Lukashenko. It's not his sign of humanity of Lukashenko. It's a result of pressure and diplomatic work with this regime. So our message is continue pressure on the regime for them to change their behavior, because sanctions is instrument. When we see that, for example, repressions are weakening, so we can think about, stopping of some sanctions. If repressions are increasing, so sanctions should be harsher. So till now, for 5 years, we haven't seen any sign that sanctions are or that repressions are weakening. Every day, 12, 15 people are being detained, new trials, people had to flee Belarus because of repressions. Is it change of politics of Lukashenko? No. So that's why until we don't see that repressions are stopped, huge number of political prisoners are released. And by the way, at the moment, it's at least 1,300 political prisoners, huge number. So only then we can see that regime, want to have some dialogue with the Belarusian people. Of course, they would like to change the policy of our democratic partners, just lifting sanctions in exchange of nothing. And this is where democratic forces' work is essential. We are in constant communication with our European partners, with our American partners. Don't leave sanctions, for nothing. Don't appease Lukashenko. Don't try to re-educate them. There should be a very clear demand. Stop repressions, release all political prisoners, and hold free and fair elections. This is the demand of Belarusian people. You can't talk to, Lukashenko regime can't talk to the USA or Europe, avoiding talking to Belarusian people.
Of course, what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is the return, obviously, to power in Washington of President Donald Trump. And he appears to be in favor of improving ties with Moscow. And I'm just wondering whether that's having an impact, and if so, what kind of an impact that's having on the political situation in Belarus right now.
I think that a new U.S. administration brings new opportunities, but also new risks. What matters most is where this strength is directed. It must be directed against the real threat, Putin's Russia. The U.S. has always been a defender of democracy and freedom, and we need strong and principled America that continues to support Ukraine, maintains pressure on Russia, and stands firm against Lukashenko's regime. And the last thing we need is for dictators like Putin and Lukashenko to feel, emboldened. They thrive on division in the West. They exploit any sign of weakness. And I hope that no matter who is in the White House, the message remains clear. The United States will not accept dictatorship in Belarus. It will not legitimize Lukashenko. It will stand with the Ukrainian and Belarusian people in our struggle for democracy and freedom. Because a peaceful, strong and united Europe, Belarus and Ukraine are part of European family of countries, is not only in Europe's interest, it's in America's interest as well.
So if President Trump manages to broker an end to the war in Ukraine with President Vladimir Putin, on whatever terms, were the fighting to end, Belarus would then presumably try to rebuild some of its economic cooperation with Western countries. I'm assuming that's what they'd do. Correct me if I'm wrong. Were that to happen, wouldn't that therefore mean that President Lukashenko's position was then strengthened somehow?
First of all, we don't have President Lukashenko. We have a person who seized power in Belarus and unleashed the most brutal terror our country has seen for years. But what I do believe is that Belarus must not be a bargaining chip in any peace talks. Because peace cannot mean appeasement. It cannot mean sacrificing Belarus to Russia in some deal. For too long, Belarus has seen as buffer zone or pawn in geopolitical games. But we are not Russia's backyard. We are a European nation. And, Lukashenko is the biggest ally to Putin. Lukashenko is the biggest liar. Before he betrayed democratic values and principles, new appeasement will return us, to the same situation. So we not just have to release people from prisons, and to leave status quo. We have to return our nation to Belarusian people. It doesn't matter what Lukashenko wants. What matters, it was what Belarusian people want. And we want to return to our European family of countries. We don't want to be in a sphere of influence of Russia, and we want to restore justice in our country.
One of the things we've heard Lukashenko saying in the last couple of days, he's accusing the United States of somehow trying to drive a wedge between Moscow and Beijing. Help us understand what he's trying to say here. What's he implying?
It's what dictators usually do. They are trying to find, external enemies. They think that everybody influences everybody. And Lukashenko always say that somebody wants to invade Belarus, that dictator is not guilty in anything. It's like, something happening in the world, and Belarus is like collateral damage. He wants, of course, to clash the strongest, of this world, to be maybe, and he wants to be a very important voice, in these battles, in these processes. But he's like nobody. We have to remember that Lukashenko doesn't represent Belarus. He doesn't represent Belarusian people, and that's why his voice at all shouldn't be included in anywhere.
I just want to ask you, you were at the Munich Security Conference earlier on this month, and I gather you were talking to a lot of the Western leaders who were gathered there, and I'm wondering what sort of a picture you managed to build about the new administration in Washington, sort of priorities and attitudes towards Belarus and indeed the region, because of course Ukraine was a very big focus of that conference.
Of course, the world is changing. I suppose that nobody was ready for changing of the position of the USA. I want to believe that Europe and Ukraine and, of course, the USA, they want peace in our region, but it should be a just and long-lasting peace in Europe. So, of course, it was really sad to see that no Ukrainians and no European Union was invited in the latest talks in Saudi Arabia. I think that such negotiations only embolden Putin and give him a feeling of impunity. It was Russia who started this war, and it's Russia who must stop it. And of course, it became very clear to me, and I suppose that to European Union as well, that Europe must become stronger and not rely solely on US support. And many European politicians, they are ready to take bold steps, and this is exactly what we need. So, the situation is changing, and I see that even experts sometimes, don't understand what will be the result of the situation we have. But I'm sure that we must strengthen military support to Ukraine and ensure that we have to make Ukraine as strong as possible, for just peace. But of course, we also cannot forget about Belarus. As President Zelensky mentioned in Munich, the eastern border of Europe also lies on the eastern border of Belarus. So it means that Ukrainians also see Belarus as part of European family of countries. It became very clear that the war against Ukraine is not just about Ukraine. It's about the entire region, including Moldova and Belarus. And this is why the EU must be at the negotiation table and ensuring that Belarus is not traded away and that peace brings security to all of Europe.
Just lastly, I want to ask, after your husband, Sergei, are you able to speak to him? Do you have any news as to how he's doing?
Lukashenko's regime started to practice new type of torturing political prisoners, is keeping them in incommunicado mode, or forced disappearance, as human rights defenders call it. So on the 9th of March 2025, it will be 2 years since I haven't heard from my husband. So no letters, a lawyer is not allowed to visit him. I don't know if he's alive, where he is, in what state he is. And of course, it's very painful. We have many people like my husband from whom we haven't heard for 2 and more years. But those brave heroes who sacrificed their freedom for future of Belarus. They are like private enemies of Lukashenko's regime. And that's why the world has to demand release of these people and at least get access to see if these people, are still alive in prisons.
Okay, well, we wish him and we wish you the very best. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Svetlana Tsikhanovskaya, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you.
That is all we have time for on today's edition of Global News Today. Thank you very much indeed for watching. We'll be here with you tomorrow for more exclusive interviews. Until then, goodbye.
From the White House to Gaza, Kyiv to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deep fake and artificial intelligence,
They've got to have a vote and a say.
it's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers,
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
join me on The Riz Khan Show for empowering conversation.
At Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News,
It's very impressive.
where knowledge meets perspective.
From the White House to Gaza, Kyiv to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deep fake and artificial intelligence,
They've got to have a vote and a say.
it's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers,
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
join me on The Riz Khan Show for empowering conversation.
Budapest. Many would consider Budapest a favorite city in Europe. It boasts of great architecture comparable to none, and lets us in on its sophisticated scene that's impossible for any other city to imitate. Here are some things you'll appreciate about Budapest. A visit to the city's thermal baths is a must. Try soaking in the Széchenyi baths, although of course there are countless other baths to choose from. A cruise via the Danube River is another thing you must do in Budapest. Nighttime is the best time to try this. There are special cruises being offered as ways to maximize your scenic trip along the river. For one, you can have a buffet-style dinner cruise while on board. Definitely a feast for the eyes, but may become an educational tour for you too. One of the greatest bridges in the world is Budapest's Chain Bridge. It's the best place in the city for romantic evening strolls. It has a well-known story behind it too. The architect who had created it was greatly proud of his work that he challenged anyone to find fault in the bridge. It was soon discovered that the lions that stand guard at the opposite ends are missing their tongues, and his genius work remains forever. Budapest is also known for its great undergrounds. The labyrinth of Buda Castle is one of the 7 wonders of the underground world. The place has also got many stories to tell, having closed down in 2011, but has already reopened. There are also many cave systems along Budapest to tour for both a learning and travel experience. There are also wine cellars in the city, which are part of the vast labyrinth system winding beneath Buda Castle. The cellars vary, but are all suitable for wine tasting. It's an experience to learn more about their wine culture. For both learning and travel experience. For shopping, there's the Central Market Hall. Here you'll find the typical Hungarian products. You'll find everything there, from the world-famous sausages, paprika, to their wines. Fresh vegetables are also among the great buys in the market. You'll also find great souvenirs to buy there, such as wares and traditional Hungarian embroidery.
At Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News,
It's very impressive.
where knowledge meets perspective.
From the White House to Gaza, Kiev to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deepfake and artificial intelligence,
They've got to have a vote and a say.
it's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers,